the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Unpredictable Victory. However, seeing Tang Mao in the National Pavilion now, Song He inevitably felt that Tang Mao was probably arranged here by Feng Li. It was just to prevent other countries from getting the national seal easily. However, although Tang Mao is very strong, how can he compare here with those who go there for training? The resources obtained are different. If this goes on, it will inevitably be a waste. So he said, Feng Li, although Tang Mao is indeed very talented and strong, if he does not follow the national team to train just to keep the seal, it is a bit of a waste of talent, right? Feng Li paused when he heard this and was a little puzzled. How could he let this kid stay here? It was obviously him who asked him to wait for something in the Magic City, but he couldn't say it. He had to respond to Dean Song He's words. Don't worry, when I change people this time, I will let him leave with me. Song He said again. This time's opponent is not simple. The vice president who came with him also said, I was also surprised that the British team came to Asia so soon, and it seems that the first country they challenged was us. Song He thought it was normal and smiled. Our national pavilion's win rate has increased, and its ranking has also increased. Naturally, they will challenge the higher ranking first. Perhaps because of Tang Mao's intervention, the national pavilion's win rate has soared, and then it has attracted the attention of many countries. A girl with a silk ponytail looked at Feng Li and asked sweetly, Grandpa, can they beat the British team? Feng Li was silent for a while. If Tang Mao was not here, he could say bluntly, they can't beat them. But Tang Mao is very strong. How strong is he? Feng Li himself didn't know. After all, he also learned about Tang Mao's deeds. Then Feng Li said vaguely, I don't know either. If the national government team was here, they might win. But with only a few players from the national pavilion and this kid, the outcome is really unpredictable. The vice president paid attention to it when he heard Song He mention Tang Mao. Now, after hearing Feng Li say this again, he also looked over. You know, according to Feng Li's personality, saying this is already a great compliment. Another girl with dyed blonde hair said excitedly, then there will be a big battle next. Feng Li nodded and did not continue to reply. On the side of the Chinese guards, Tang Mao, Mu Nijio, Dong Fanglai, and Li Kuang were fighting. On the British team, it seems that they chose the players randomly. Generally speaking, as the captain of the national team, he rarely takes action in the guarding competition. After seeing the 4 people who came out, he said to the people around him, they are all high level. Li Kuang said, I hope they can't use high level magic yet, so we should be able to fight. The 3 of them were not very motivated to fight. Tang Mao encouraged, cheer up, we may not lose. Li Kuang forced a smile. To be honest, he just came up. The most important thing is to participate. Fighting against the British team, how can there be any chance of winning? Dong Fanglai didn't say anything, but he showed an attitude of trying his best. As for the result, he was mentally prepared, and it wasn't like he had never lost before. Mu Nijio was very serious. After all, this was a game that would determine whether she could successfully enter the national team. The British team was a combination of 3 men and 1 woman. The woman looked more eye-catching. Even though she was wearing clothes and accessories that were more ancient, she still exuded an elegant temperament, and her golden eyes exuded a nobleness that made people feel ashamed. The girl with golden eyes seemed humble and polite, and she performed an elegant ceremony when she came up. Tang Mao licked his tongue and thought to himself, this girl is not bad. She looks tall and big, and the weapon is also quite majestic. At the sight, the round-necked low-necked part revealed a deep milky white cleavage squeezed out by the balls, which was about to come out. It is really rare to see such an unscientific figure in China. My name is Irene. This is my first time in China. Please teach me. The girl with golden eyes smiled and seemed to have a good impression of Mu Nijio. Mu Nijio also responded in return, far less rude than when she played against the Egyptian team. However, Mu Nijio was very dissatisfied with Tang Mao's thief eyes. At this time, the game officially began. After the game started, the 4 British players did not take the initiative to fight, with a calm smile on their faces, as if they were not fighting magic. Fierce Fist. Flame Dragon. On the side of the National Pavilion, as agreed in advance, Dan Fanglai used his ultimate move as soon as he made a move. Unlike the 4th level Fiery Fist, he actually used a higher level of power than the Fiery Fist 9 dragons. A surging flame dragon roared past and rushed towards the 4 British people. The flame dragon rushed around with amazing power, and the British couldn't help but show a little surprise. Seeing that this grandson directly swung the 5th level Fiery Fist, Tang Mao was a little surprised. The 5th level Fiery Fist. Tang Mao thought to himself, this son thief is really very rich. You know, even if he can possess the spirit of a general, he has only strengthened the primary skills to the 5th level. As for the intermediate magic, it is obviously not enough. Moreover, Tang Mao has never thought about this at all. Dan Fanglai looked at the expressions of the crowd and raised his mouth. If he had not cultivated to the 5th level, he would not dare to jump up and slap the British team in the face. It happened that several important mentors were watching. Maybe they would be more satisfied with him, and promotion to the national team was just around the corner. The golden-eyed girl Irene opened her little mouth, and the fiery red splashed on her pink cheeks. Then he praised, it's really a country with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. There are such strong people among the guards. Of course, praise aside, a purple-blue star map appeared under her feet. After the first star map appeared, the second and third star maps appeared one after another. They circled around the golden-eyed girl Irene, forming a water constellation. The beautiful brilliance made the girl Irene more beautiful and holy. Water flower sky curtain. The finger gently touched the air in front of him, and a water pattern quickly spread out, and a purple-blue waterfall barrier appeared, hanging in front of the 4 members of the British team. Although the flame dragon was domineering and fierce, after hitting the water flower sky curtain barrier, its body was immediately extinguished by the water barrier. It was unstoppable and aggressive just now, but not long after, there was no movement at all. The water flower sky curtain perfectly resisted the fierce fist. Flame Dragon. Chapter 252 Beast Tide vs Beast Tide. This. Dan Fanglai was stunned. Tang Mao's high level magic was already fast enough, but he didn't expect that the British girl with golden eyes was not much slower than him. Question mark? Tang Mao was not surprised by this. He casually drew an ice star map, and then the second star map, the third star map, and finally the constellations emerged. 0° ice crystal spear. The flame dragon was just shattered, and Tang Mao also took action. After the crystal spears emerged, they shot out with a convex sound. Irene didn't think anything was wrong just now, after blocking a flame dragon of Dan Fanglai, but when Tang Mao's crystal spear swept across, her expression was extremely serious, because she felt that this person's ice attribute was very strong. The spears continued to break, but under their sharp impact, they directly froze the water barrier into an ice layer. Finally, with a crack, the protective water curtain instantly dissipated, and the sweeping of the spears has not stopped yet. The man next to Irene, who was dressed in a neat British suit, had a dark purple look in his eyes when he saw Irene's defense was broken. His eyes turned into a series of crackling electric sparks. Thunderbolt. The man in the suit said with a bit of majesty. Thunderbolts and lightning fell in the air in pieces. Each lightning was accompanied by sparks, filling the entire minefield. Facing the ice crystal spears that were sweeping over, Thunderbolt had already dropped more than 30 lightning bolts, and there was no sign of stopping. Crack, crack. The sound of the spears breaking came out one after another, and in an instant, the ground on their side was covered with broken ice. Seeing that the ice crystal spears had been completely destroyed, Shat, who was standing next to Irene, said, "I will attack. My William hasn't exercised for a long time." Shad read the contract, and a contract door slowly opened. A griffin covered with golden feathers rushed out, and after a long cry, it quickly rose into the sky. The light from the ceiling of the National Pavilion hit the feathers of the golden griffin, and it immediately reflected the noble and sacred light, illuminating the entire arena. At the same time as it appeared, Tang Mao's Absolute Zero was instantly activated. At the moment, when the ice attribute field was activated, the ground instantly froze quickly and extended all the way to the 4 British people. After Irene saw the extended ice field and saw that there was no scattered ice fragments here, she hurriedly said, "Not good, stop him." Hoo. The other team members also noticed something was wrong, and Shad directed his summoned pet. The golden griffin flapped its wings, and its sharp eagle eyes locked onto Tang Mao, who was casting the domain. Then, this guy swooped down from the air like a golden sword, and it was as sharp as if it was going to chop Tang Mao on the ground into pieces. Seeing the golden griffin rushing towards her, Mu Nijio hurriedly cast plant magic to control it. She quickly completed the star map and created a large jungle, using dense thorns and treetops to block the flight of the golden griffin. At the same time, Li Kuang also used light defense magic to protect Tang Mao. The golden griffin's attack was blocked, and the ice domain under their feet had begun to control their actions. Seeing that the golden griffin's attack was ineffective, Shad asked the golden griffin to return to his side, and then said, "It seems that I have to show some real skills." Then, he immediately outlined a moon-white constellation. The moon-white constellations formed a gorgeous and mysterious area, and it was vaguely visible that there was a void dimension gate standing on this fighting field. The dimensional door became clearer and clearer. It was a summoning tunnel leading to another plane. Before the door was opened, one could hear a huge movement inside the door, eager to rush out. "Oh no, something bad is going to happen." Beidongwei was the first to shout outside the arena. The mysterious door gave out an extremely dangerous aura, like a black wave covering it. At this time, Shad shouted loudly, "Earthblood Beast, start your trampling." The dimensional door suddenly opened, and a large group of bear-like creatures with blood-colored muscles all over their bodies rushed out. Their roars shook the entire pavilion, and their majestic limbs easily smashed the ground of the arena into pieces. This high-level summoning technique did not summon a powerful summon beast at all, but summoned a group of them. They formed a majestic beast tide and trampled on it crazily. The number of Earthblood beasts was so large that they were unstoppable when they rushed. Seeing the beast tide coming, Tang Mao had to give up his control of the field. After all, the opponent has not been frozen yet, and I'm afraid that the high-level summons in front of them have been trampled by them without leaving any residue. Tang Mao stopped casting the domain and immediately outlined a moon-white constellation. The moon-white constellations formed a gorgeous and mysterious area, and a vague dimensional gate of nothingness could be seen standing on this fighting field. Then Ziohei took the lead. Unlike the other side's group of general-level demons, the leader Tang Mao summoned was at the commander level. Roar, roar, roar. With Ziohei's roar, there was a rumbling sound behind, and then the same group of beasts rushed out. Shad, who was full of confidence just now, was in a bad state. Irene's little face was full of surprise. Although she heard that there was a very strong player guarding the Huaxia National Pavilion, but she didn't expect that the opponent was so strong. High-level ice system and high-level summoning system. The two beasts rushed into the field and collided. The sound of dong 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 came out, although it seemed that both sides were very strong. But the big guys and Shad himself knew that the other side was obviously a crushing existence. All summoned creatures from the dimension to the real plane cannot stay permanently. After all, they are not creatures of this world. After the two sides fought for a while, although the field was chaotic, they did not suffer any losses. Of course, this was also the reason why Tang Mao called Ziohei and the others back. This kind of summoning is really a waste of magic energy. Tang Mao will naturally not rely on this to decide the outcome. Moreover, that Irene obviously has not exerted her full strength. King Luan, Li Quan, Jiagang. As the beast tide dissipated and the ground was in tatters, Tang Mao suddenly punched into the ground, and the fire star map emerged. The 4 people just broke free from the ice, and they felt the underground fire element energy bursting. Boom. Then a column of fire shot up into the sky. Irene and the others didn't care about using defensive magic at the moment. Everything happened too fast, and then they each summoned their magic tools. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 253 Substitute Munigyo. Although they were protected by magic tools, one of them was injured and eliminated. After all, Tang Mao's strength was too abnormal. While defeating a British opponent, the attack did not stop. Tang Mao's fist burst into flames. Fierce Fist. 9 dragons. Although his Fierce Fist was not strengthened to the 5th level, his flame was soul level fire. In addition, Tang Mao was already a high level fire mage, so the power of his Fierce Fist was more powerful than Dan Fang Li's. At the same time, Mu Nigio used Kun's forest and prison to control the 3 people there. And Dan Fang Li also used another Fierce Fist. Flame Dragon. Blast out. Seeing this, Irene and the other 2 team members supported their defense. A water sky curtain appeared in front of the 3 of them, followed by another layer of holy light. Painting wall. However, under the combined attack of Tang Mao and Dan Fang Li, the shields were both broken. Irene, Shad and another team member were all horrified. The 3 summoned their shield magic tools at the same time. This was a full 5 layers of defense, and the raging fire was finally calmed down. The 3 members of the British team were sweating coldly at this time. Purple Sky. Thunderbolt. Wild Dance. However, just as the power of the 2 flames dissipated, Tang Mao suddenly blasted out a thunderbolt. They had just eaten 2 fire explosions, and now they were greeted by thunder? Everything happened too fast and too suddenly, and the 3 British players were not mentally prepared at all. They had just used up their shield magic tools, and now they had to panic and summon their armor magic tools. The defensive capabilities of armor magic tools are similar, and the really good armor magic tools are extremely expensive, so even among the members of the national government team, not everyone would spend a lot of money on armor magic tools. After all, equipment is far less reliable than cultivation. Except for the green and red long armor on Irene, that could really resist Tang Mao's thunderbolt. The other 2 were directly blown naked and twitched all over. I can't do it anymore. Shad majored in summoning. He found that the situation was not good and hurriedly jumped out of the battlefield. Another team member couldn't hold on. After all, Tang Mao's wild dance was over, but the bombing of the purple sky field continued. As for golden-eyed Irene, her armor magic tool was obviously a top-grade product. Even Tang Mao's destructive magic power only left some traces of explosions, and did not really hurt her. From this, it can be seen that Irene is the strongest among the 4. Her 2 team members wisely withdrew from the arena, and she was the only one left on the arena. Tang Mao did not continue to consume magic energy to bombard her. After all, her magic tool could not be blasted by intermediate magic. Moreover, how could such a beautiful lady be treated so violently? He wanted to spread it all over the world, and this little princess could naturally become one of them. Tang Mao dispersed the thunderbolt, and saw that Irene was now a little embarrassed, and her hair, which was originally delicate, beautiful and neat, was in a mess. Even so, she still maintained her inherent elegance and said, I heard that there was a very strong contestant in the Huaxia Pavilion before. I think it must be you, but your strength is still beyond my expectation. As she said that, Irene combed all her hair back, revealing a very 3-dimensional beautiful face. Her pair of golden eyes were particularly moving, full of exotic flavor. Tang Mao did not move, but said, that was just the tip of the iceberg. My strength has not been fully demonstrated. Tang Mao did not move, and Munigyo and the other 2 had nothing to do. After all, the gap between them and Irene was not a little bit. Moving and moving would not have much effect though. Wasn't that all your strength just now? Irene blinked her eyes, a little surprised, and a little interested. Tang Mao nodded. It's just that I don't want to go all out in front of such a cute girl like you. After all, this is not the world competition. It's just to get a medal of the national pavilion. After sorting it out, Irene said again, that's right, but I really want to see your full strength. If you show your cards here, it won't be a good thing for you or me. I think you should just admit defeat. When it comes to the world competition, how about competing against each other and keeping the suspense? He seemed to remember that this girl could be persuaded to stop, so he said tentatively. Hearing this, Irene really nodded. Okay, we don't care about this medal. I think you will definitely go to the national team, and then we will compete against each other. After that, Irene really walked off the fighting stage in front of everyone's surprise, and chose to give up the fight. The atmosphere of the whole audience changed instantly. The other three looked at Tang Mao. All of them were puzzled. This girl is too easy to fool, right? In the audience, Feng Li and others also twitched their mouths. Even Bei Dongli admired Tang Mao's shamelessness. However, in fact, in their opinion, if Tang Mao went all out, Irene might not be his opponent. It's just that in this way, too much is exposed. It's not good after all. Tang Mao didn't think so. The reason why he did this was just to prevent Mu Nijio from being beaten down. After all, only in this way can she get a chance to be a substitute. We won. We won. Mu Nijio was stunned there and couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. Not to mention that the guards on the side of the hall were speechless. Even the people on the British team had bitter faces, and they were completely confused. Yes, if we win, we can go to the world to train together. Tang Mao turned around and looked at Mu Nijio next to him. Are you afraid that I will be repelled, so you persuaded her to go down? Mu Nijio said, after realizing it belatedly. Irene's strength is definitely not simple. I don't know her background, and I don't know what cards she has in her hand. So, it would be best if I can persuade her to surrender. For this girl whose family is rich, he is really not sure what cards she has. If the fight continues, Tang Mao will definitely win in the end, but if Mu Nijio and the other two are cleared out, wouldn't that be a pit? Without him, if Mu Nijio wants to go further, it will be the time of the world competition. However, by that time, the gap between the guarding team and the training team will be even bigger. Although Mu Nijio doesn't like this way, she knows that Tang Mao is also helping her. So she said, Tang Mao, thank you. Tang Mao smiled evilly and said, what nonsense are you talking about? Just give me some compensation in the evening. Mu Nijio was shy, snorted lightly, and left. And An Fang Lei and the other two were full of envy. Although he is just a substitute, it is much better than staying in the national pavilion. There is no comparison between the two. If possible, they are also willing to follow the training team to train everywhere. Unfortunately, they are men. Although the ending was unexpected, Feng Li was still very satisfied. He walked down from the viewing seat and walked in front of Tang Mao and others. Mu Nijio, pack up your things and leave with us in a few days. After talking to Mu Nijio, he looked at Tang Mao again. Have you dealt with your affairs? Will you return to the team? Tang Mao hurriedly responded, return to the team, return to the team, I'm done. Hearing this, Feng Li looked at him and then at Mu Nijio. Although he was not in the national pavilion, he still knew some things. He was a little suspicious now. Is this kid lying to him? There is no bead at all. He stayed in the national pavilion to pick up girls. Seeing Feng Li's gaze, Mu Nijio lowered her head shyly. She also knew that she could get into the team with a lot of help from Tang Mao. However, it is naturally impossible to catch up with the Guofu team by just practicing here. But if she goes to experience, it will be different. Although her family is not very powerful, but knowing that she has entered the government, they will definitely support her with resources. Chapter 254 Battle in the Sky. After the game, Feng Li and his team suddenly received a call. It seemed that there was something to deal with. Then he told Mu Nijio and the others to fly to South America by themselves. South America is a land with the most primitive style. The deserts, jungles, and rivers there seem to have retained the appearance of thousands of years ago and have been relatively less invaded by humans. Of course, this is not because people do not want to expand their cities, factories, and roads, but because South America is a huge nest of demons, and the demons there are notoriously bloodthirsty and rampant. Since the mentors were not accompanying them, Mu Nijio thought it would be better to set off earlier, so she went back to pack up her things, and by the way, she needed to help Tang Mao pack up. As for Tang Mao, he asked Irene out. He explained to Mu Nijio that after all, they gave up the wave, and he went to do his duty as a host. Mu Fei really had no choice but to accept this. With Irene, who was tall and handsome, and the key was big, eating, drinking and having fun in the food street for an afternoon, Tang Mao successfully fooled her contact information. Regardless of whether he can be a scumbag or not, at least he can't not even call her. What if I go to the UK that day? I can show my strength in the national government competition, and then I will have a promising future the next day. On the plane, Tang Mao looked at Munigio next to him and said, Gio, do you want to go to the bathroom? No. Munigio refused directly after hearing that. She originally meant to do so, but when she heard Tang Mao speak, she decisively refused. What this bastard wants to do, you don't need to think about it. After all, she has been fooled once while waiting for the plane. Munigio sometimes doubts whether this guy has that thing in his mind. The most important thing is that he is too bold. I really don't know how he dares. Tang Mao failed to seduce, so he had to continue to be bored. Buzz just when Tang Mao was a little bored and couldn't sleep, there was a sudden vibration. Then, a sweet voice came out from the cabin broadcast. Dear passengers, our plane is encountering turbulence. Please sit down nearby and make sure your seat belts are fastened. The cabin was shaking violently, and sometimes there was a feeling of weightlessness. However, most of the passengers flying internationally are frequent passengers, so it is not strange to encounter turbulence. You will encounter it basically anywhere in China. Munigio always felt something was wrong, and looked at Tang Mao beside her and said, this turbulence seems to be a bit too serious. Tang Mao wondered, could it be that he encountered a demon? At the same time, the cabin was shaking more and more strongly, which gradually changed the faces of those passengers who were originally normal. What's going on? Is there an accident on the plane? If it keeps shaking like this, the plane will fall apart. Several uneasy passengers have already shouted, and the flight attendants are sitting in their seats, fastened their seat belts, and dare not walk around in the aisle. Moreover, because the shaking was too intense, the lights in the entire cabin were turned off at once, and the oxygen masks suddenly fell from above. The oxygen masks appeared, which was a big problem. For a moment, the whole cabin was filled with screams, and several female passengers who were weak in endurance burst into tears. Tang Mao unbuckled his seatbelt and said, I'll go take a look. I think I have encountered a demon. I'll go with you. Munigio also unbuckled her seatbelt and said, boom. There was another violent shake, and the plane suddenly sank. The feeling of the heart hanging in the air immediately caused the passengers in the entire cabin to scream. The two subconsciously looked out the window and found that the wing was tilted a bit seriously, up and down, and it was impossible to keep stable. If it was still okay, then there was really a ghost. A flight attendant came over and hurriedly said, Sir, please don't move around. It's very dangerous. I'm a mage. Tang Mao responded in a light voice, and then he and Munigio walked towards the cockpit. The two met the chief flight attendant and the substitute pilot, and they all looked ugly. Tang Mao said directly, is there a demon? The substitute pilot asked, are you a wizard? Tang Mao and Munigio nodded at the same time. Although both of them look very young, wizards are always stronger than ordinary people. The uniformed pilot said excitedly, that's great. We detected that a demon that can manipulate airflow has broken into our route and affected our normal driving. Now we have fallen into its strange airflow and cannot fly out. Munigio said somewhat reproachfully, it's so serious, why are you still hiding it? Do you want to crash the plane? The chief flight attendant said helplessly, we have no way. The airspace wizards are already rushing here at full speed, but we are now in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. It will take some time for the airspace wizards to arrive. We can only temporarily control the plane and everyone's emotions. Several flight attendants next to them were already scared out of their wits. If a big demon appeared on the route, even if all airlines used specific materials, that would not attract the demon's hatred. It is not ruled out that this big demon is staring at them. Tang Mao looked at the flight attendant and said, I'll go and kill it. Just make sure you don't get shot down. The flight attendant and the co-pilot were both stunned, although having a mage did give them a lot of comfort. But whether it was Tang Mao or Munigio, they were too young, right? It's a bit unreliable for the two of them to solve it. Looking at the questioning eyes, Tang Mao said with a little displeasure, I say, why are you in a daze? If I wasn't afraid of the plane crashing, I wouldn't bother to get involved in such things. The flight attendant was a little confused by Tang Mao's attitude. After all, he was just afraid that they would lose their lives. How could his kindness be taken for granted? Hurry up, I don't want to fall into the sea. After hearing Tang Mao's urging, the flight attendant and the substitute pilot had to take the two to the tail of the passenger plane. There was a special door at the tail of the passenger plane, with a total of 3 layers, which could lead to the tail of the plane. Tang Mao and Munigio entered the special door and soon reached the tail of the plane through this entrance. The plane needs to maintain a certain flying speed in the air, which is quite fast. Even if there is no airflow in the air, the wind is still amazingly strong. Fortunately, both of them have wind magic, so this resistance is nothing. The two jumped to the wing together, standing in the fierce wind. It was like a roaring flood, and it could sweep people away at any time. The clouds are divided into 2 layers, one in the higher airspace, as thin as gauze. The other layer is below the plane, as thick as cotton, and spreads to the horizon, looking like a white soft continent that can be stepped on. Tang Mao looked behind him, and sure enough, he found that about 2 kilometers behind him, a giant hummingbird was on this route, and getting closer and closer to the passenger plane. The frequency of its wings flapping was quite fast, so fast that it was almost transparent, and it was making a rolling humming sound. What affected the normal flight of the passenger plane was the air turbulence caused by the high frequency flapping. Chapter 255 Arrival. After seeing the strange bird, Tang Mao looked at Munigio next to him and said, Gio, restrict its movements. Okay. Munigio responded, and immediately began to draw a wind star map. The moment the strange bird approached, she directly controlled it. When Tang Mao was about to make a move, the strange bird suddenly shattered the wind disk. Obviously, the intermediate magic was not enough to hurt it. Tang Mao struck the air with a thunderbolt. Little Yanji, come out. This thing was getting closer and closer, and if it wanted to fly in the air, it would need Yanji to merge. After Yanji appeared, she flew directly towards the strange bird, and a huge fireball hit it, and the strange bird easily dodged it. It seemed quite arrogant, as if provoking little Yanji. And Munigio was also a little anxious and said, Yanji, come back soon. It's not that she didn't believe Yanji, but if this strange bird attacked the plane later, there would be hundreds of lives on this passenger plane. Yanji was not a pushover, but the provocation of the strange bird irritated her little princess. After she yelled, huge fireballs appeared around her, and the strange bird was surrounded without her noticing. Tang Mao looked at the irritable little girl, hugged Munigio and said, it's okay. My daughter is angry, and this strange bird is in trouble. Boom. Boom. Although its speed was not slow, it was quickly hit by Yanji's infinite fireball bombardment. Yee. The strange bird screamed, as if it realized that this huge little lolly on the iron sheet was not so easy to mess with, and immediately gave up the intention of attacking and turned away. Little Yanji, come back. After seeing that the other party had been scared away, Tang Mao called out. Little Yanji pouted her little mouth and kept gesturing with her limbs, as if to tell Tang Mao that she was very strong. That damned bird is no match for her. Tang Mao nodded in response, but because they were on the plane, Tang Mao still took it back into the contract space. The giant bird flew away, the airflow immediately returned to normal, and the plane gradually entered a stable flight. Returning to the cabin, the flight attendants, stewardesses, and pilots all came over and happily expressed their gratitude to the two. That's great. Thank you for driving away that terrible demon. It's amazing. Tang Mao smiled and said, it's nothing. After all, we are also a member of this plane. Even if they are magicians, it will not be of any benefit to them if the plane really crashes. After all, no one knows what exists in the Pacific Ocean. The plane continued to move forward because they knew that Tang Mao and the other two were magicians, and they had a strong relationship. The service of the stewardesses was extremely enthusiastic for the rest of the journey. If it weren't for Munigio, Tang Mao felt that he could probably feel the service of several stewardesses here. They are indeed trained in professional schools. That's really wow. Seeing him staring at her from time to time, Munigio said in a low voice with a sullen face, Tang Mao, you bastard, can you stop being so embarrassing? Ahem. After being discovered, Tang Mao looked at Munigio again, wanting to reach out to comfort her, but Munigio slapped him away. And she said very seriously, we are just friends. Please don't go too far. Friends? Tang Mao paused, curled his lips and muttered softly, "You didn't say that in the bathroom when we were waiting for the plane." Although he was talking in a low voice, the two of them were sitting so close, and Munigio was a mage. How could he not hear clearly? Munigio's face turned red in an instant, and then she looked at Tang Mao with some shame and anger and said, "If you say it again, I will ignore you." Tang Mao paused and said, "I didn't say anything. Go to hell." Munigio's angry voice made many people look over. Munigio, who was already a little shy, was even more shy, and lowered her head immediately. Tang Mao smiled awkwardly, then looked at everyone and said, "It's okay, it's okay. The couple just had a quarrel." Munu stretched out his hand and pinched Tang Mao coquettishly. This guy is so shameless. The passengers just smiled and didn't care much about it. After all, there are couples who don't quarrel. After a small episode, they also arrived at their destination, Peru in South America. The government team was waiting for them in Hanmi City, Peru. Hanmi City is in the south of Peru. It is not a tropical rainforest, but a tropical Gobian desert. You can often see an orange rock stretching to the end of the sky, bordering the blue sky, endless, and occasionally you can see a mountain rising from the ground, standing alone on the land of several kilometers. The narrow shadow will be like a black sword splitting the ground in half under the sunlight. Arriving in Hanmi City, Peru, the temperature rose sharply. The two got off the plane and went straight to meet up with the Guofu team. The high temperature baking was not affected by Tang Mao's frost protection. But Xiao Yanji liked it here more. She jumped and felt like she was back to the northern corner of Zoyan. In a stone hotel in Hanmi City, Tang Mao and the others found Ai Jiangtu and his friends. From a distance, they saw these guys drinking local cold and refreshing beer in the tavern on the first floor of the hotel. They looked very comfortable. Because of the hot weather, Tang Mao looked at Jiang Shaoxu at first sight. Not surprisingly, this little hoof was dressed quite coolly, with a pair of round white breasts exposed by 1/3, revealing the wildness and boldness of the local people in South America. The short and tight hot pants made the perky buttocks particularly attractive. Similarly, Jiang Shaoxu just came out and was the first to discover them. The moment he saw Tang Mao, a seductive smile appeared on his face, but it soon disappeared suddenly. Not knowing why, he looked at Munigio. Tang Mao smacked his lips helplessly. Needless to say, this bitch still remembered that he had left. Moreover, it seemed that she had not forgiven him yet. However, judging from the effect of her just coming in, it was obvious that this woman was just angry. "Didn't you see me?" Tang Mao walked over and said to Jiang Shaoxu. The little fox snorted and didn't want to pay attention to Tang Mao. Munigio knew that Tang Mao had been in the national government team and in front of her, so they must be friends. Then she nodded and walked inside to report to Ai Jiangtu. She might not be familiar with others, but she was familiar with Ai Jiangtu because of Ai Tutu. Chapter 256 Bounce. Seeing that Munigio had given him a chance to deal with this little bitch, Tang Mao thought to herself, what a sensible girl. He didn't care whether Jiang Shaoxu would pay attention to him or not, and directly pulled her aside. Although Jiang Shaoxu refused on the surface, she knew in her heart that she didn't reject this bastard. Jiang Shaoxu thought it was just a common hug and greeting in foreign countries, but Tang Mao deliberately pushed his chest towards her. Bounce. Really bounce. Before Jiang Shaoxu could get angry, Tang Mao hugged her again with a counter confinement. Rogue. Jiang Shaoxu looked back at Tang Mao and gave him a charming look. She didn't really reject this kind of tofu behavior. However, when she thought of the ruthlessness of this bastard to her when she left before, Jiang Shaoxu said angrily, "Don't touch me. Do you miss me?" Tang Mao sniffed her fragrance and asked softly. Jiang Shaoxu snorted, "What do you want to do? There are so many men around me every day." As soon as she finished speaking, her small buttocks were slapped. You. Jiang Shaoxu was not very shy, but felt that Tang Mao was too much. Since he didn't express his love to her, why did he take advantage of her? Although she really didn't care, she still had to have the right attitude. Otherwise, when the person was eaten up, it would be too late. This kind of thing is really not something that ordinary people can do. However, Tang Mao said, I haven't been a human for many years. The two of them were deadlocked for a moment, and Jiang Shaoxu saw that this dog thing still didn't mean to say anything. He raised his foot and stepped down hard. However, Tang Mao would naturally not be attacked twice by the same attack. The moment her little foot stepped down, he retracted his foot. Looking at Jiang Shaoxu, Tang Mao said in a daze, why are you so irritable? Jiang Shaoxu was even more unhappy that he didn't step on Tang Mao. She turned back and glared at Tang Mao. Let me go. No. Jiang Shaoxu gritted his teeth and said, you bastard. I am Jiang Shaoxu wanted to lose his temper, and Tang Mao was even more angry. She frowned slightly, but also enjoyed it a little. She was strong in words, but she also liked Tang Mao to touch her like a kitten, preferably with some rudeness and domineering. Jiang Shaoxu's little temper and her poisonous oath said no, no. The two entered the store together, and 10 minutes later, Mu Nijio met Ai Jiangtu, Mo Fan, Muningsu and Zhao Manan here, so she didn't feel uncomfortable. The remaining Jiangyu, Nanju, Guanyu, Nanrangni, Mutingying and Zhu Jiming naturally had nothing to reject about a girl. And the substitute Lu Yilin who came earlier had no repulsion to the beautiful young lady or Munijio who had guarded the national pavilion together before. Seeing Tang Mao and Jiang Shaoxu walk in side by side, they simply greeted each other. Zhao Manan said with a wicked smile, Boss Tang, you two have been out for so long, didn't you do anything? Of course, we were very passionate. Tang Mao did not hide anything, but admitted it generously. There was no way Mu Nijio and Muningsu were not fools. If he said this, maybe no one would notice anything. Nor would he be suspected of anything. After all, Tang Mao has been a loose-lipped person for a long time. And if he lied, let alone what they thought in their hearts, Jiang Shaoxu would probably make trouble with him again. If she made a fuss, everything would be over. Sure enough, as Tang Mao said, no one cared. Moreover, Jiang Shaoxu rolled her eyes again, with a look of disgust on her face. Seeing that no one had any big reaction, Tang Mao breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt a little regretful that he had been too arrogant just now. Since no one had any big reaction, Tang Mao went straight to sit next to Muningsu. As soon as he sat down, several eyes looked at him. The first one was naturally Mo Fan's. Seeing the big man who he couldn't step on sitting next to his goddess and not being rejected, Mo Fan felt a pain in his heart. But fortunately, he had received care from his sister before, so he just felt a pity and at the same time full of envy. The second look, naturally, came from Guan Yu. He never stopped pursuing Muningsu. But, until now, he didn't get the chance to say a word to her, let alone sit next to Muningsu. The other two unfriendly looks were naturally from Munijio and Jiang Shaoxu. However, Tang Mao chose to ignore them directly, looking at Muningsu and said, how are you recently? Muningsu was still the same, and nodded slightly. Seeing that she didn't speak, Tang Mao didn't mind. After all, the ice girl has always been like this. Moreover, if she didn't speak, there was nothing he could do. Muningsu's bounce was no worse than Jiang Shaoxu's. She was still as cold as an ice goddess, but suddenly felt something was wrong. So she looked at Tang Mao, and there seemed to be some emotions in her beautiful eyes. Take it away, her voice was very soft, just like a mosquito. Fortunately, Tang Mao was right next to her, so he could hear clearly. What did you say? Seeing Tang Mao acting like a rogue, Muningsu wanted to get up, but as soon as she moved, she felt like she was pinched. Too much. Too much. But because she was sitting at the corner of the table, no one would notice anything if she didn't move. But if she moved, it would be hard to say. She had no choice but to give up getting up, because she was a little scared that Tang Mao would go even further. However, her tolerance made Tang Mao even more unscrupulous. The environment here is quite hot, and everyone's clothes are naturally very thin. Although Muningsu is still very conservative, she certainly won't be wrapped in a thick cotton coat, right? Tang Mao bullied the pure and innocent goddess Mu, while listening to everyone talking about what happened a while ago. Some complained to each other, and some discussed how to outsmart others. Tang Mao was one of those who had just come online, and he didn't know what they were talking about. But what is certain is that they must have encountered some trouble. He pretended to be idle and asked everyone, "What's wrong with you? What trouble have you encountered?" Muningsu almost lowered her head to the ditch at this moment. This bastard is simply amazing. She even stretched out her hand to push him, but Tang Mao seemed indifferent. Muningsu did not dare to move too much. Of course, she also understood that the reason for this was because she did not respond to him properly just now. To be honest, Muningsu regretted pretending to be cool for no reason. Chapter 257, Muningsu being bullied. Except for Tang Mao, no one else noticed any changes in Muningsu. After all, the goddess has always been so aloof. After hearing Tang Mao's question, Jiang Yu responded, "It's like this. There is a Peruvian ruins about 70 kilometers outside of Hanmi City. I heard from the locals that there are wind and electricity, and there may be good things there. It's definitely not enough for everyone to live on the little resources given by the instructor. Now, in addition to challenging the National Pavilion, everyone will try their best to search for treasures. Everyone has a backstage, but who would complain about having too many resources? Traveling around the world is not just to explore valuable treasures. Moreover, the world is so big that treasures of heaven and earth may also be excavated. Many of those truly strong people have obtained treasures and unique resources during their training, and then slowly stepped onto the peak of their lives, so adventures are very important." Tang Mao supported his chin, and said with great interest, "Yes, I like your idea. This kind of place must have treasures. When you hear it, you know, it is protected by two powerful elemental forces of wind and electricity, and it is also a relic. If there is no valuable thing in such a place, isn't that ridiculous?" Moreover, Tang Mao lowered his head and took a look at the condensed evil pearl in his hand. Since the plane landed in South America, the condensed evil pearl has had some reaction, and the direction of the light is exactly that of the ruins of Desert City. It seems that there must be energy in this special ancient ruined city that can fill the condensed evil pearl. Other things can be ignored, but the matter of filling the beads cannot be ignored. After all, this is a great life-saving weapon. Jiang Yu said with a bitter face, "We also think there should be treasures, but there is a narrow Gobi Valley in front of the ruins of Desert City, which is sandwiched between two faults of the earth. It is the safest way to the ruins of the ancient city, but we tried it, and almost got into trouble. There is a group of stone elemental creatures living in the Gobi Valley. They are thick-skinned and powerful. We can't even think of stepping through their territory. They had tried it once a while ago. Even though they were powerful, they were still almost blocked alive in the Gobi Valley. After all, there were too many stone demons, and it seemed that they could not be killed. So even though they knew that the ancient city of ruins had strange phenomena, and that a great treasure must have appeared, they could only sigh in despair as they could not even pass through the Gobi Valley. Zhu Jiaming said with some fear, "I think it's better to forget it. We can't even pass through the Gobi Valley. God knows what dangerous and terrible things are in the ancient city of ruins. There is no need to take risks for unknown things." Jiang Shaoxu was extremely unhappy with Zhu Jiaming. It seemed that, when they were training in the country of Bangzi, they encountered a threat and were abandoned by him. Even if Muningsu and Ai Jiangdu had not arrived quickly, she would have been dead now. As soon as she heard her speak, she immediately scolded her without hesitation. "You are a coward." Zhu Jiaming was very unhappy. Although he was wrong that time, his life was so valuable. Why should he care about her if he couldn't beat her? Although he was a little lustful, he was not willing to risk his life for lust. Moreover, in his opinion, this place was simply impossible, so he retorted, "I'm a coward. You have a way to cross the Gobi Valley. If you can't, just leave quickly. Why are you wasting time here?" Mo Fan on the side said hesitantly, "The wind and thunder attributes are so powerful, who knows if there might be top grade spiritual seeds or something. It would be a pity to miss it." Like Tang Mao, Mo Fan, who needs to work hard in everything he does, naturally does not want to miss out on places where there are treasures. Although Jiang Yu was a little scared, he still said, "Yes, even from such a distance, we can detect the severe abnormalities of the wind and lightning element there. Fortunately, this place is vast and sparsely populated, and no other magicians have noticed it yet." If we miss this opportunity, we will regret it for the rest of our lives. Tang Mao looked at Nanju, and then said, Nanju, you are an expert in this field after all. Do you have any suggestions? Nanju was stunned, and then responded, in fact, the Gobi Valley is not as difficult as imagined. They have no eyes and extremely slow perception. They rely entirely on slight vibrations of the earth and stone walls to capture the movements of intruders. Muting Ying said sarcastically, then why didn't we go there before? Zhao Manan thought Nanju wanted to say fly over. Then he said, forget about flying. There are some sun-black bats on the rock walls of the fault on both sides. Not to mention flying over from the next valley. Even if we fly over from the sky, we will be surrounded by them. The airspace of demons is the most inviolable. Nanju said confidently, I made an element instrument that can change the vibration of the earth overnight the day before yesterday. Even if we walk through their territory, we will not wake them up. However, the element instrument needs someone to place it, like a jigsaw puzzle, so that we can walk between two element instruments. In fact, even if Tang Mao didn't come back, she was ready to take them there again. Otherwise, her work would be in vain. AI Jiangta nodded and said, then give it a try. Jiang Yu was also a little excited and said, it's just right. I don't want to miss this opportunity. The principle of the instrument made by Nanju is actually very simple. It is that two element instruments emit weak ground waves to make the surface structure more stable, so that there will not be any fluctuations due to everyone's footsteps. Those stone elements are extremely sensitive to the earth. A kitten walking on them will wake them up. So with this, they can try to pass through the Gobi Valley. After everyone discussed it, they passed through the world and then left here. And Muningsu was finally saved. When Tang Mao let her go, she immediately hid with Jiang Shaoxu and the others. Tang Mao didn't care about this. Anyway, there was still a long time, and it was only a matter of time before this arrogant little girl was captured. After leaving Hanmi City, everyone went all the way to the Gobi Valley. When they arrived at the Gobi Valley, Tang Mao found that his beads were getting stronger and stronger. Obviously, there was something in the ancient city that could fill the beads. Guan Yu was very fast, and I don't know if he was pretending or what. He came to the front one step faster than everyone else. Then he stood in front of the Gobi Valley with his hands folded on his chest, looked arrogant and said, we're here, what should we do now? He didn't take another step forward. Obviously he had suffered here. Chapter 258 Gobi Valley. After everyone arrived at the Gobi Valley, Tang Mao found that the geology here had obviously changed. It was no longer the dry orange-yellow color, but a little red, and the entire Gobi Valley also showed a dark red color. In fact, the formation of this Gobi Valley is also quite spectacular. Mu Nijio and Tang Mao were both here for the first time, and they were also a little surprised. The vast land is divided into two layers, and it suddenly rises to the west, and there is a continuous cliff parallel to the horizon. The cliff is like a majestic wall, blocking the originally flat terrain, as if dividing another world. The upper ground is scorched stone, which is fiercely baked by the sun. The temperature is so high that even high-level mages are like walking on fire on it, and it is absolutely difficult to pass. Of course, Tang Mao, who has soul-level flames, naturally doesn't care, and the only place with a slightly normal temperature is the Long Canyon. The sunlight cannot shine into the valley, and the temperature will be much lower than the upper ground. The ancient city of ruins is on the other side of this whole raised high-rise land, an ancient holy land that is almost isolated from the world and protected by the scorching Langping mountain. This kind of place has never been explored by anyone, and even demons find it difficult to break into it. It is the most likely place to breed the treasures of heaven and earth. This is also the main reason why they have been wandering here for many days. Hearing Guan Yu's question, Nanju looked at everyone and responded, there are only 3 element instruments in total, and the distance is 100 meters. So we need someone to spread the element instruments forward and someone to take back the element instruments before we can continue to move forward. AI Jiangta stepped forward and said, then let me take the first baton. Nanju nodded in agreement. Well, the stone element in front are not strong yet, and your space magic should not alarm them. Although there are 3 space mages here, only Tang Mao and AI Jiangtu have reached the high level of space magic. Emofan is only a mid-level space mage. However, Emofan still asked, can't we just use our mind to send this element instrument to the front? Nanju shook her head and said seriously, no, this element instrument needs to be manually calibrated. Different geological conditions require different frequencies. If that happens, the element instrument will lose its function. Emofan shrugged and gave up the idea. Lu Yilin said contemptuously, you're always making trouble. Emofan seemed to be at odds with him. He immediately retorted, preschooler, do you owe me? Lu Yilin said angrily, what did you say? Nanju looked at the two of them and scolded, okay, stop arguing. If you two don't want to go in, just stay here. Lu Yilin's eyes were cold, and then he snorted. But he didn't say anything else. And Emofan would never argue with such a person. After all, he was very interested in the treasures inside. After stopping the two, Nanju buried a spinning top-like elemental instrument at the entrance of the Gobi Valley, adjusted it manually, and waited until the elemental instrument flashed green light before she signaled AI Jiang to set off. AI Jiang directly constructed a constellation, and his whole body was covered with a mysterious silver glow. The space trembled, and AI Jiang disappeared from the spot, and appeared without any warning 100 meters in front of the Gobi Valley. Caca. Almost as soon as AI Jiang landed on the orange-red land of the Gobi Valley, a terrifying sound immediately appeared on both sides of the stone wall. Stone faces appeared on the wall one after another, becoming more and more three-dimensional, and gradually the whole head came out of the stone wall. Seeing this amazing scene, Mu Nijio couldn't help but cover her mouth with her hand. Looking at the many big heads that appeared on the stone wall, she could tell how many stone elements there were in it. She couldn't imagine it. Could they really pass through such a place? Tang Mao was beside her, patting her butt and saying, don't worry, I'm here, it's okay. Mu Nijio looked back in shame and anger, gritting her teeth and saying, even if you want to comfort me, you don't have to pat me. Jiang Yu, the encyclopedia, looked at Mu Nijio and Tang Mao gritting their teeth and explained, these are the forbidden moonstone demons in the stone element, each of which has the strength of a small warrior. They don't like moonlight. We originally considered using the moonlight to make a fuss at night, but unfortunately this Gobi Valley is too narrow, and this is the southern hemisphere. The movement of the moon makes it difficult for the moonlight to shine in here, so it's no wonder that so many forbidden moonstone demons live here. Hearing Jiang Yu's words, Mu Nijio immediately regained her composure. She didn't bother with Tang Mao anymore. After all, he was thick-skinned, but she couldn't. Jiang Shaoxu, the little hoof, also came over. It seemed that he saw Tang Mao standing next to Mu Nijio, and asked with a hint of doubt, Tang Mao, are you familiar with Miss Mu? That's right, she knows my strengths and weaknesses, and I know her depth. When Tang Mao said this, Mu Nijio and Jiang Shaoxu cursed at the same time. Mu Nijio also distanced herself from Tang Mao at the same time. Jiang Shaoxu said contemptuously, can't you be more gentlemanly? Tang Mao was about to speak, but was interrupted by Nanju's voice. She saw that the forbidden moonstone demons were about to wake up collectively, and hurriedly said to AI Jiang to quickly adjust the frequency and rotate to the corresponding geological needle. AI Jiang also hurriedly did so, allowing the element instrument to adapt to the geological conditions of this surface, so that it could transmit the ground wave back to the first element instrument at the entrance of the valley. The forbidden moonstone demon had half of its body pulled out of the stone wall, and the element instrument had not yet taken effect. Seeing that this kind of thing seemed to be not as simple as it was said to be, everyone began to back out. This thing is unreliable. Go save Captain AI. And several people have already started to prepare to help AI Jiang too. Cuckold. At this time, AI Jiang suddenly shouted. Hearing this, Mu Nijio, Mu Ningxu, and Jiang Shaoxu looked at Tang Mao in sync and inexplicably. However, fortunately, their eyes were all on Tang Mao, and they didn't pay attention to the other two women. But even so, Tang Mao was a little scared, but he didn't dare to say a word. At this time, he was really a little panicked. Fortunately, Nanju suddenly said, press it together. This attracted the attention of the women to one side. Tang Mao was already a little regretful at this time. Why did he work so hard to help Mu Nijio as a substitute? Isn't this just shooting himself in the foot? Exclamation mark. After all, Mu Nigio is not Muningsu. But then again, what's the use of regretting now? Chapter 259 Stone Demon Riot. Kaka. The Forbidden Moon Stone Demons made a heavy sound, with a bewildered look on their faces. Just as Nanju said, the Forbidden Moon Stone Demons have no eyes and poor hearing. They rely entirely on the slight vibrations on the ground, caused by the movement of objects to sense. Tangmao also came back to his senses, thinking that he should take it one step at a time. He also looked into the valley, and saw that AI Jiangtu was clearly in front of them, but after patrolling around, they returned to the stone wall, and continued to sleep. Obviously, Nanju's instrument is useful, and not in vain. AI Jiangtu also gave Nanju a thumbs up with full appreciation. Nanju did not get carried away, and smiled and said to the others, "Let's move forward." Everyone stepped into the orange-red land of the Gobi Valley together, and the Forbidden Moon Stone Demons sleeping in the stone walls on both sides did not wake up again. Using the same method, everyone walked forward for about 400 or 500 meters. Gradually, the Gobi Valley became a little winding, and cooperation was needed to successfully pave the road. Fortunately, there was a very special contracted beast in the team, that is, Jianyu's Night Rakshasa. The road was relatively smooth. However, judging from the aura emanating from the stone walls on both sides, there are more Forbidden Moon Stone Demons here, and they are stronger. There were a few times when the connection was not accurate, and it almost went wrong. Nanju looked ahead, then turned back and said, "We are almost there. We should be able to get out of this Gobi Valley after passing that corner." AI Jiangtu also looked at it, and then said, "This corner is a bit big. It seems that the element instrument is not easy to put. Someone needs to retrieve the one behind us before we can continue to move forward." Mo-fan happened to be walking at the end of the team, and then he said, "I'll go get it." After saying that, he went back to get the element instrument left behind, so that they could successfully pass this canyon corner with a large arc. Nanju said, "After you finish dismantling, you must follow us immediately. Don't stay too long." And not long after Mo-fan left, a sudden crackling sound came out. The stone walls on both sides trembled loudly, and countless Forbidden Moon Stone Demons woke up from the stone walls. Although they had no eyes, they still mocked these intruders with their anger. Seeing this scene, someone exclaimed, "Oh no, they are all awake, run away." Although Nanju didn't understand what happened, it was obviously not the time to think about it. Looking at the crowd, he said, "We are about to be blocked, get to the exit." AI Jiangtu said, "I will lead the way, you guys hurry up and follow." The entire Gobi Valley shook suddenly, and those Forbidden Moon Stone Demons made of rock bodies rushed out of the stone walls one after another. After AI Jiangtu went to deal with the stone demons that had already come out, Tangmao cast ice magic, and began to freeze both sides. However, this place is too huge. Even Tangmao's Absolute Zero can't freeze it completely. After seeing that it was ineffective, he directly followed the main force to sprint out. The magic light shone brilliantly in the valley. Knowing that something was wrong, everyone dared not hold back anymore. They hurriedly used all their strength and rushed towards the exit frantically. Fortunately, everyone was not far from the exit. If they rushed out in one breath when something happened, they would not be completely surrounded. At this time, someone shouted, "Lu Yilin is behind." Nanju immediately responded, "Help." The team moved back a little, and after Lu Yilin was supported, everyone rushed to the exit in one go. But just as he reached the exit, Nanju suddenly remembered that the last person should not be Lu Yilin, but Mo-fan, who was going to recycle the element instrument. Mo-fan, where is Mo-fan? Nanju shouted loudly. There were huge rocks falling from the top of their heads, and the Forbidden Moon Stone Demons were attacking from both sides. It was already a mess, and no one noticed that Mo-fan was not in the team. Tangmao heard this, and immediately found something wrong. He immediately said, "You guys rush forward, I'll go to support Mo-fan." If he still couldn't figure out what happened, wouldn't he be a fool? Tangmao returned. Nanju wanted to go with him, but Guan Yu, Zhu Jiming and others didn't want to. After all, they didn't think they had to be buried with Mo-fan. In addition, AI Jiangtu was leading the way in front. so she had no choice but to lead everyone forward. Not long ago, when Emofan looked up and saw the narrow crack in the sky, he thought it was very beautiful and magnificent, but when he saw that the entire rift was filled with a huge number of forbidden moonstone demons, he felt that this was the worst place in the world. Moreover, what he was thinking about now was not how to deal with Lu Yilin, but to survive. When he saw the stone demons constantly besieging him, he didn't hold back at all. He summoned all the Swift Star Wolf and the Nether Spirit Tiger. This Nether Spirit Tiger is his contracted pet, and it seems to be obtained by chance. Its grade is not weaker than Zhao Hei at all, although it is only at the sub-commander level now. Because of its bloodline, its combat power is close to some small commander monsters. With two giant summoned beasts protecting the left and right, Emofan began to kill. On the other side, Tang Mao, who returned, also encountered obstacles. However, with the fusion of Yanji, Soul Fire and Robbery Flames, a wave of 9 palaces and 9 dragons swept over, and more than 10 stone monsters were killed. The Thunder Field was also opened one after another. The star map came as soon as he touched it, and the constellation was also very fast. In a moment, he solved nearly 100 stone monsters, but the stone monsters here are still increasing. Fortunately, he didn't come here to hunt stone monsters, and he kept sprinting inside. Tang Mao continuously depicted the black star map, the silver star map, and the red star map. Inadvertently, a thunderbolt broke the rock wall at the corner, and suddenly a part of it emerged that was as smooth and attractive as a diamond. Notice that the rock wall at the corner has a color that is completely different from the orange-red rock. It is smooth and clean like crystal, and looks so different. Immediately, Tang Mao grabbed it in his hand. No need to think, this thing must be a treasure. After grabbing this duck egg-sized crystal from above and putting it away, Tang Mao also felt the magic shock in front. At this time, Emofan also killed over. The moment he saw Tang Mao, he said happily, "Boss, you are still very considerate. If you don't come again, I will use my last trump card." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 260, Breaking Out of the Siege. Emofan's last trump card is undoubtedly the demon system. He seems to have mastered this power and is ready to kill and obtain spirits here. On the contrary, no matter what, he doesn't want to die here. After all, living is a real thing. But now that Tang Mao is here, it means that he doesn't need these extra things. Although Muningsu is gone, it is also a good thing to have a big brother. However, he didn't know that he had lost too many things. Tang Mao looked at Emofan, and then at his summoned beasts, and then said, "Let your 2 pets go back. Follow me, I will lead you to kill." Emofan nodded, did it immediately, and came to Tang Mao. While he was talking, the stone demons had blocked the entire exit, as if there was no gap at all. In such a narrow space, there are so many general level creatures piled up, it is a dead place. Ice constellations appeared around Tang Mao, and then ice crystal spears swept out. The moment they hit them, they instantly turned into ice sculptures. However, because of their good defense, it was impossible to kill them all. However, he came here to save people, not to kill monsters. He continued to run outside with Emofan. Skyflame Funeral. Frozen Coffin. Tang Mao's high-level magic was used one after another. Although there were many stone monsters, they died one after another under the bombardment of Tang Mao's explosive magic. Finally, they turned into residual souls and were collected by Tang Mao. Emofan and others did not lick the loot. After all, Tang Mao came to save him and did his best. I can't go too far. After bombarding for a while, there was only less than 100 meters left. When I rushed out, I saw that the number of stone monsters was increasing. Immediately, white constellations appeared around Tang Mao. Dimensional summoning. Roar. After a roar of beasts, one by one, the war general level monsters, which were twice as big and aggressive, rushed out. Under their impact, a hole soon appeared. At the same time, AI Jiangtu and others also rushed over. With their support, the two of them naturally felt a lot more relaxed. At this time, Lu Yilin was extremely uncomfortable. He had never thought that this mountain and wild man who had always made him unhappy could actually come out alive. At the same time, he also hated Tang Mao for meddling in other people's business. Mu Nijio came to Tang Mao and asked, "Are you okay?" Although she usually didn't show anything, her concern was from the heart. Tang Mao smiled and shook his head. These, did you kill them all?" Jiang Shaoxu was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. The entire road was full of corpses of the forbidden moonstone demons, too many to count, layer after layer, all the way to the corner, and it seemed that there were still many on the other side of the corner. Mo Fan took a breath and then said, "They were all solved by Boss Tang. I was just an assistant." When Mo Fan said this, everyone present felt incredible. After all, Mo Fan was already a magic turret. But unexpectedly, Tang Mao was even more ferocious. "Stop talking nonsense, retreat quickly, there are still endless stone demons behind us." Tang Mao was a little helpless. Didn't these people look at the place when they were chatting? Where the hell is this place? And they are still chatting. Everyone also reacted, and then rushed out again. The moonlight sprinkled cleanly and coldly at the exit of the Gobi Valley. The exit of the Gobi Valley suddenly became clear. In front of it was a piece of land as flat as before. Except that the color of the land was still orange. The horizon could be seen at a glance. The moonlight shone unscrupulously on this orange-red land, and a boundary was also separated at the fault position of the exit of the Gobi Valley. The forbidden moonstone demons who were extremely afraid of the moonlight crowded in the shadow of the Gobi Valley. Even if the intruder was only 10 meters away from them, they did not dare to chase out, as if they would turn into ashes if they touched the moonlight. After rushing out of the Gobi Valley of the forbidden moonstone demons, everyone's faces were also a little tired. It's not the loss of energy, but the slackness and fatigue that comes from being so tense for too long. Even Tang Mao was exhausted. These stone demons have strong defenses, and even his intermediate magic can't cause large-scale damage. More importantly, they are almost endless. It's as if they never stop. After they were safe, Zhao Manan looked at Mo Fan and asked, "Mo Fan, what's going on?" In fact, everyone knew what was going on. After all, Mo Fan was going to pick up the equipment. However, in the end, things got chaotic, and it was Lu Yilin who came out from the back, and the two of them had fought a lot along the way. So, the matter is already very clear. The reason why Zhao Manan asked this question was actually to make Lu Yilin get the punishment he deserved. The scheming bitch Nanrangni cleaned Mo Fan's wound. Because of the demon system, this guy was as strong as an ox, and there was no obvious serious injury on his body. After being healed by Nanrangni, he was full of energy again. As soon as Zhao Manan mentioned this, his eyes shone with murderous light, staring at Lu Yilin who had already shown signs of uneasiness. Mo Fan slowly walked in front of Lu Yilin and said in a cold tone, "Humph, I want to kill someone now, you'd better not stop me." Lu Yilin had already started to retreat. He never thought that Mo Fan could come out alive. The pale expression on his face had betrayed him. Jiang Shaoxu and Munijio were checking Tang Mao's wounds. Hearing this, they looked at Mo Fan at the same time. Muningsu seemed to be ready to stop him, but was stopped by Tang Mao's space magic. She looked back in confusion, and then hurriedly said, "If he kills someone, he will be kicked out." Tang Mao felt a little unhappy when he heard what she said. However, he shook his head and said, "That's his own fault. What does it have to do with you?" Tang Mao's words were double entendres, and it was unclear whether he was talking about Lu Yiming or Mo Fan who wanted to kill him. Muningsu was stunned. When she was about to say something, Tang Mao said, "If we hadn't returned quickly, Mo Fan would have died now. And this kind of brainless idiot will die sooner or later." Although he was a little unhappy with Muningsu's worry, he didn't mean to trap Mo Fan. Such a person should be killed, and it didn't seem to have much impact if he was killed. After all, who would he be looking for death? When Nanju, who was standing next to Mo Fan, learned about this, she was also furious and said, "Lu Yilin, how could you do such a thing? We are all on the same team, and even if we are unhappy with each other, we should use some brains, right?" This Lu Yilin not only framed Mo Fan, but also the other members of the team. If there was no mistake, when he was about to leave, wouldn't they all die here? I have no evidence. How can I say it was me? Just based on his words. Although Lu Yilin was afraid, he thought that there was no evidence. He immediately became righteous and confident, as if he was ready to deny it even if he died. Chapter 261 Stupid Teammate. Seeing that he wanted to die and refused to admit it, the people present understood. After all, at this time, if he admitted it, he would definitely die. Unfortunately, he didn't know that he was facing the wrong person with this kind of weak sophistry and refusing to admit it. How could Fan care about these? He only knew one thing, that he had just persisted because he wanted to tear him apart. Then, a burst of silver star map flashed, and Fan lifted Lu Yilin up with his mind and pressed him hard on the stone wall on the fault. Bang! Lu Yilin was hit like that and screamed ah. Seeing this situation, they understood that Fan was really angry. Lu Yilin said in fear, "What do you want to do?" Fan said with a murderous look on his face, "What? Humph, you want my life? Of course I will repay you." Jiang Shaoxu looked at the situation over there and then said, "Why don't you stop it?" Jiang Shaoxu naturally didn't care about Lu Yilin's life or death. After all, this kind of idiot deserves to die. But Fan is also quite interesting. It is not good to lose the opportunity just because of Lu Yilin. The most important thing is that he will probably face the whole Lu Shi targeting next. No, since he has already made up his mind to kill, why should I stop him? Tang Mao did not mean to stop him, but it did not mean that Nanju and the others could sit back and watch. Nanju immediately said, Fan, don't be impulsive. We'd better report this matter to the instructor and let the instructor handle it. Private fighting is not allowed in the team, and the instructor will definitely punish people like Lu Yilin who frame teammates. Jiang Yu next to him also said, yes, such people should be handed over to the government for disposal. If you kill him directly, the Lu family will definitely make trouble for you. After all, he framed you, but you didn't die, but you killed him, and he really died. Everyone will only pay attention to the latter. Zhao Manan also persuaded him, Fan, if you don't want to be entangled in big trouble, you should spare his life first. Our Zhao family will come forward for you, and let the Lu family pay the blood price for this behavior, and compensate you well. This will be more beneficial to you. He also knew that several people were doing it for his own good. However, if Lu Yilin was released like this, Fan felt that he couldn't swallow this breath. Fan slowly loosened his hand and said, okay, I won't kill him. Just as they breathed a sigh of relief, Fan suddenly said, if he can escape from that damn Gobi Valley alive like me, I will forgive him. Mu Ningsu, who was beside Tang Mao, looked at him and said, he and I are only childhood friends. Doing this kind of thing can only make you feel better, but other things are completely useless. Before Lu Yilin could put on a relaxed face, he immediately received a stronger power of will. The silver wave hit his chest and knocked him flying backwards. However, just as he was about to be thrown into the Gobi Valley, another power of will suddenly controlled Lu Yilin in midair. Everyone paused, and after seeing Tang Mao take action, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Tang Mao was too lazy to care about such trivial matters, and being able to save him was already very good. But since Mu Ningsu had already said so, Tang Mao decided to take action once. After all, it was rare for the cold beauty to ask for help. Although Fan was just a childhood friend, it had already expressed everything. Fan was a little puzzled and looked at Tang Mao with some dissatisfaction. Tang Mao didn't care much about this and said calmly, don't be angry, killing him is useless and it will bring you unnecessary trouble. You can get a lot of income by not killing him. Can you tell which is more important? As Tang Mao spoke, Nanju also said, based on his brainless behavior, he will definitely not be able to stay in the national government team. If you keep him alive, as Tang Mao said, you can get a lot of income. At this time, Jiang also took action. He directly lifted Lu Yilin behind him. Fan was a little unwilling to see this, but Tang Mao had already taken action. What should they do? He was about to give in, and Lu Yilin, who was saved, thought he was safe, but when he thought of his future, he insisted, humph, I didn't want to kill him. He wanted to kill me, you all saw it. If you keep talking, I can kill you right away. Before anyone else could speak, Jiang said coldly, Lu Yilin dared to be arrogant, but that was only against Fan, who had nothing behind him. But against AI Jiangtu and the others? He really didn't have the courage. After scolding Lu Yilin, AI Jiangtu said again, I hope this kind of thing won't happen again in the future. Even if Fan doesn't do it, I won't let such a person stay in the team. The matter has been resolved, and then Nanju said again, let's continue to set off. We have wasted a lot of time here. Jiang Yu, you are responsible for watching Lu Yilin. Although Lu Yilin needs to be dealt with, it is definitely not now. And no one knows whether this kind of idiot will do anything else stupid. Jiang Yu nodded, and at this time Lu Yiming was completely stupid. Because he knew that, although he didn't have to die, his future was cut off and everything was over. The journey that followed was much smoother. The farther the team walked, the flatter the terrain became. The reaction of the beads in his hand became particularly strong, which showed that he was closer to the energy. Nanju looked at the two instruments in his hand and said, 4 kilometers ahead, we should be able to see the ruins of the ancient city. The elemental reactions here are getting stronger and stronger, especially the wind element and the thunder element. Hearing this, everyone was excited. After going through hardships, they were finally going to reach this destination. Just when everyone was happy, Zhao Manan's voice suddenly came out, look ahead. Hearing this, everyone looked far away and found a shocking black and grey hurricane that was like a black dragon rising from the ground and piercing the clouds. The visual impact of the hurricane standing between heaven and earth made everyone gasp. The hurricane's body was like a dragon's body, and it could be seen clearly from a long distance. The strong and powerful waist of the hurricane and the mouth of the hurricane that suddenly opened up after touching the sky made people feel inexplicably short of breath. What was even more shocking was that the entire black wind was accompanied by purple gold lightning, and the electric chain was as thick as a python, flashing at a high frequency, and it was too much to handle. Such an amazing scene stood in the wilderness of western Peru. If you hadn't passed the Gobi Valley, you would never have discovered that there was such a wonder here. Chapter 262 Heading to the Ruins. After a moment of silence, Nanju came back to his senses, and then said in surprise, this lightning storm seems to be in the ruined city. Jiang Yu hesitated and said, my goodness, it must be an ominous place. I'm a little scared. Zhao Manan agreed with what Jiang Yu said, and he also felt a little regretful. What a joke, there is still so much money in his family that has not been spent. If he goes in, he will not know how he died. Not only Jiang Yu and Zhao Manan were a little panicked, but others also had some retreat. Although this place is an unmined place, not many people want to go in and see what it is. Tang Mao didn't care what others thought, he was determined to go here. Because the lightning storm ahead was still shocking everyone, and it was already late, everyone set up tents in an open place, and waited until tomorrow morning to move forward. After setting up their tents, several people prepared to rest. Tang Mao had no intention of sleeping, and looked at Zhao Manan who was sleeping like a pig there and quietly left the tent. In a flash, he came to the girl's tent. This was Tang Mao's first experience of stealing someone's love. There were 6 people in the girl's tent, Nanju, Nanrangni, Mu Tingying, Mu Ningsu, Jiang Shaoxu, and Mu Nijio. He had a 50% chance of not entering the wrong tent. If he entered the wrong tent, he would just run away. Anyway, he was not the only one who knew the shadow system here, so he could just push 4, 5, or 6 people. At this time, every tent was dark, but there was no obstacle to his vision. When he slipped into the first tent, Tang Mao sniffed the smell in the tent. But what disappointed him was that he entered the wrong tent at the first one. It turned out to be Nanju's tent. As for why he knew it, as soon as he entered, it was naturally the instruments on the ground. Tang Mao didn't think about who she was with. In order not to arouse Nanju's awareness, Tang Mao turned around and slipped away. However, he didn't know that Nanju had already stood up. After all, she was a sound mage. Even if Tang Mao was careful, he would definitely be noticed. Nanju, where are you going? Nanju had just stood up when a numbing voice came out. Nanju responded in a low voice, I just seemed to detect the fluctuation of shadow magic. Huh. Jiang Shaoxu was suspicious for a while, and then smiled coquettishly. It seems that some bastard wanted to take advantage of you, but he was scared away when he saw your instrument. Nanju glanced at the instrument on the ground, and then he understood why the other party ran away as soon as he stepped in. So he saw the instrument, and knew that it was him? Nanju said with some contempt. Humph. It's better not to let me catch this kind of pervert, otherwise I will definitely punish him severely. Jiang Shaoxu said again, I think he ran away a long time ago, and you may not be able to catch him, even if you go to catch him. No, I'm worried. Nanju said, and left the tent. Tang Mao, who had just left the tent, left immediately. He originally thought that he had not been discovered, but Jiang Fox had already spoken so loudly. If he didn't have some perception and mental power, wouldn't it be a waste? After returning to the tent, Zhao Manan was still sleeping soundly. The night attack failed, so he also fell asleep peacefully. The day dawned quickly, and you could clearly see a bright red sun slowly rising from the horizon, and the bright red morning light spread on the orange-red ground. The cries of a few strange birds woke up the people sleeping in the tent. Although he didn't sleep for long, Tang Mao was still full of energy when he woke up in the morning. After all, he was a magician, and there were things that his beads liked in this ruins, so he was naturally refreshed. Except for the failure of the attack on the United States last night, it can be said that everything is okay. When Tang Mao woke up, Zhao Manan also woke up. He shook his head for a while, looked at Tang Mao and said, good morning. Yeah, good morning. After responding, Tang Mao suddenly thought of something and said, Zhao Manan, do you have any magic tools that can be used to practice controlling the stars faster, or do you have any channels? Although his speed in controlling the stars is not slow, after breaking through the super level in the future, he can't waste time on this every day, right? Zhao Manan nodded and said, of course I have it. Although I can help you get it, you still have to pay for it yourself. Tang Mao placed the extremely shiny crystal stone obtained yesterday in front of Zhao Manan. Take a look at this stone, how about it? Zhao Manan is a merchant mage, and he basically recognizes valuable things. As soon as Tang Mao took out this thing, Zhao Manan's face showed an unconcealed joy. Then he asked curiously, where did you get this rare thing? I got it in the Gobi Valley when I rescued Demo Fan yesterday. Tang Mao replied, and then threw it to Zhao Manan and said, is this thing enough? Enough, enough, enough. Zhao Manan replied with a panicked look on his face, and then hurriedly held it with both hands. Then he cursed, fuck, this thing is more expensive than the galaxy vein. It's worthless if it breaks. Tang Mao shrugged and said, I used a lightning magic to hit it, but it didn't break. It's not that fragile. This thing is definitely very valuable, but I don't have time to sell it, so I'll give it to you at a discount. The magic weapon that controls the stars. If you dare to give me a cheap one, I'll hang you up and beat you. Zhao Manan curled his lips and said, I'm that kind of person, but this thing is too important to me. Tang Mao smiled and said, okay, you don't have to thank Dad. After saying that, Tang Mao left the tent, and at this time, the others also came out. Then after gathering together, everyone walked towards the somewhat panicking lightning storm circle. Although some people didn't want to go there, but they were already here, there was no way out, so what could they do if they didn't move forward? The black storm had transformed into a huge monster, and it felt like it was right in front of them. Even though there was still some distance, the yellow dust flying in the air, as well as some extremely dry grass and stones, could all feel the strong airflow with suction, bringing them closer and closer to the lightning storm. However, this force was probably only equivalent to the wind force of level 7 or 8. Everyone was a high-level magician and their bodies could still withstand it. After walking for a while, Su Jiming's cowardly voice came out again. It feels like there is nothing here. Let's leave as soon as possible. Jiang Shaoxu saw that he was extremely unhappy and immediately said sarcastically, I don't know what's the use of you having such a strong body of fat. Zhu Jiming knew that he had offended this old lady before, and he was also aware of the power behind her, so he habitually ignored her chatter. Chapter 263, Strange Bird Attacks. The crowd did not dare to get too close to the lightning storm, but in this entire ruined city, apart from this spectacular black lightning storm, There was nothing worth exploring. There were no ancient treasures, no elemental anomalies, and even no demons guarding here. Demons are also very realistic. There is nothing worth exploring in this area, so they naturally will not live here. After searching for a while, it is inevitable that people are a little disappointed. After all, they have been wandering here for so many days and broken with great difficulty, and the result is this? After searching for about half a day, the ruins were just a pile of broken stones. Nanju found some words on some broken stone pillars that she was more interested in, and no one else found anything. Nothing. Who said this is a virgin land? I told you a long time ago that you shouldn't come to such a broken place. No one forced you to come. Without any gains, everyone naturally complained in dissatisfaction. And slowly, it turned into a quarrel. Nanju looked at the situation and said calmly, sit down and rest for a while, and see tomorrow. If there is still nothing, we will probably go back home. Nanju had already spoken, and no one else said anything. After all, she was the deputy captain of the team. Several people sat on the ground and repaired themselves. Pyramid. 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 Suddenly, a sharp sound like lightning piercing the sky came from afar. At first, there were only a few sounds, but soon it became a group sound, which made everyone who was resting startled instantly. The next moment, everyone looked up at the sky in a very synchronous manner. It was a time when the sun was about to set. The orange sunset light dyed the clean sky without any clouds red, and dyed the western sky into a beautiful orange-red color with a sense of layering. The surface and the upper ground itself are orange, which complements the sunset sky. However, many uninvited guests appeared in this vast orange and red painting. They have emerald green bodies, as beautiful and smooth as jade, but their wings are completely blue. Whether it is hard feathers or fluff, they all look particularly neat. When they fly here in groups, it feels like emerald clouds and blue silk cloth are covering the sunset sky little by little, gradually approaching here. When Tangmao and Munigio were wandering, Mo-fan suddenly exclaimed, fuck, it's them again. Why are there more of them this time? Zao Manan also held his head and screamed, are you kidding me? We have walked so far, and the airspace of those big demons allows these things to fly freely. Normally, the airspace is controlled by demons, and other demons will definitely be attacked fiercely if they use this method. But this group of strange birds seemed to be unharmed and chased after them. Moreover, the number this time seems to be a little more than the last time. Question mark? Jiang Yu looked around and said in a state of collapse, it's over, it's over. This time we are in such an open place, without even a little cover. How can we fight them? Oh my god, there are some in this direction too. There are some here too. Damn, we are surrounded by them. Tangmao listened to what they said and looked at the strange birds with emerald bodies and blue wings everywhere. He always felt very familiar, but he just couldn't figure out what was going on. Munigio came to Tangmao with some fear at this time. She was also an innocent person. After all, she had just come to experience, so how could she be led into the siege of demons? No one of you can tell me what's going on. Tangmao curled his lips and said to everyone. The number of strange birds was astonishing. If not 10,000, there must be 8,000. It was definitely a mighty demon army, but he had killed tens of thousands of demons over the years, so he was not too panicked. Zao Manan said, about a month ago, we had just arrived in Peru and accidentally walked into a place that the locals said was a restricted area. We were chased by these strange birds. At first, there were only dozens of them, and we killed them casually. Later, there were hundreds of them, and we dealt with them. Later, when we were in the city, these strange birds actually chased us, and were killed by the defense of the Peruvian city, causing an orange alert. Later, later is now. Hearing this, Tangmao paused. Although he couldn't figure out what he had forgotten, the most important thing at the moment was to solve the problem. The strange birds were getting closer and closer, covering them like clouds. Nanju, the wisdom capsule, had no idea and said to AI Jiang with a somewhat ugly face, what should we do? Let alone these nearly tens of thousands of strange birds. Even if there were thousands of them, without any cover, they would not be opponents at all. After all, not everyone's magic was as uninterrupted as Tangmao's. AI Jiangtu looked at Nanju with a sullen face and said, if you were given a choice, would you rather fight these strange birds, or go into the lightning storm? Before Nanju could speak, Jiang Shaoxu shouted, Captain, are you crazy? The destructive power of this lightning storm is comparable to superclass magic. We will definitely die if we go in. AI Jiangtu paused and said seriously, we shouldn't go that deep. To put it bluntly, we should go into a zone that we can bear, but these strange birds can't. This is the only way I can think of. If you don't want to be eaten by these strange birds in 5 minutes, follow me now and head to the lightning storm zone. Others had no choice at all. As AI Jiangtu said, there were still many unknowns in the lightning storm zone, but fighting with nearly 10,000 strange birds in such an open space would result in death. Immediately, everyone ran towards the place where the lightning storm was. Even though they knew that there was a high chance of death here, they had no choice. Because if they didn't run, they would definitely die. Zilla. Zilla. As soon as he entered, a burst of lightning suddenly fell. This power was comparable to the power of his own domain. Moreover, the wind was so strong that it was like a blade, and it was painful when it scraped on the face. At the moment he stepped into this place, Tang Mao found that Zuzi became more excited. This little thunder and wind blade naturally did not cause much harm to him, and he blocked it easily. Yee. Chapter 264. Forbidden Puppet. The birds were so close that even the rumbling sound of the wind could not cover it. Through the hazy wind belt, several emerald figures could be seen. They flapped their wings with great effort, resisting the strong wind, while rushing towards them without hesitation. These birds seemed to be fighting to the death with them. Even though they had already entered here, they still chased them in. AI Jiangtu, who was leading the way, stopped after feeling the increasing damage nearby. He looked back at everyone and said, prepare for battle. Originally, they thought that, since they had already arrived here, these birds should not rush in again, but a large group of strange birds with emerald bodies swooped down against the biting wind. They were fierce and swift, and they knew how to control the airflow. They were much stronger than they imagined. Nanju commanded, be careful not to be separated, keep the formation. In the windy area, visibility is actually very low, and the communicator is even more disturbed by lightning. Amid the noisy bird calls and the rumbling wind, communication depends purely on shouting. Fortunately, Nanju is a sound mage, and her voice can be heard by everyone. Various magic bombardments only killed 1 in 10,000. Nanju said, keep the formation, go deeper, there are still too many, we can't handle it. Hearing this, AI Jiangtu saw that the situation was not good, so he led everyone to continue to rush into the stronger storm area, hoping that this storm could really form a barrier and create a natural isolation zone for them. Mo Fan, left. Mu Ningsu, behind. Tang Mao, left. The visibility in the storm was too low, and everyone couldn't even see each other's faces. Now only Nanju could command the formation. Tang Mao killed a few birds, and suddenly found that these strange birds were soulless. After noticing this, Tang Mao hurriedly said, stop fighting, save your magic power, these strange birds are soulless. Retreat inside. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. No one expected that the one who chased them for so long was actually a puppet without a soul. Moreover, the strength was so strong. AI Jiangtu asked with some doubts, are you sure? Yes. Tang Mao only responded with one word, without too much explanation. After hearing what he said, everyone understood why this group of strange birds had been chasing for so long without encountering any obstacles. Then, the team continued to move towards the center of the lightning storm. At this moment, the strong wind force was enough to tear the slave-level creatures to pieces. Each of these high-level mages also needed a defensive magic to move forward normally in the lightning storm. After entering here, Nanju breathed a sigh of relief and said, it seems that the strange birds dare not chase us anymore. Jiang said a little depressed, will they wait for us outside? We can't hold out in this lightning storm for too long. The wind is consuming our magic power infinitely. If lightning passes by accidentally, our defensive magic tools will also be consumed. Everyone is now at a loss. They can only hide in the storm to discuss, but hiding in the storm is not a long-term solution. God knows how stable this lightning storm is. If it suddenly goes crazy and its power increases, won't it sweep everyone into the strongest area of the storm? How dare you talk? If you hadn't led us to rush around, how could we be chased by these puppet birds so embarrassedly? Zhu Jiaming pointed at Jiang Yu and scolded. Jiang Yu, you have to take full responsibility for this matter. Guan Yu and Muting Ying also complained. Jiang Yu knew it was his fault, so he didn't say anything. Tang Mao was a little annoyed and then said, your accusations now are useless. I don't think this kind of thing will come for the last time. You may have triggered some forbidden technique. After hearing what Tang Mao said, everyone became even more panicked. And Tang Mao seemed to remember that the solution to this problem seemed to be at the Peruvian pavilion. But he couldn't remember more. Then, Tang Mao said, tell me about the places you went to before, the group of strange birds you provoked, and the people you met. I remember when we stepped into Nazca, an uncle reminded us that this was a forbidden area when we went there, and we should not trespass casually. Zhao Manan recalled, and said a little embarrassedly, but we didn't listen to him and walked in. We found that no one dared to go in here, but after we went in, we didn't meet anyone. Uncle? Tang Mao paused and asked again, is there anyone living there? They all shook their heads. Tang Mao understood and said, if I'm not mistaken, the uncle you are talking about should know the restrictions there. Moreover, he should have done something he shouldn't have done, and then he knew the danger, and he might have reminded you out of guilt. Muting Ying said helplessly, but we didn't do anything that would infuriate the public, so why would they attack us so relentlessly? Tang Mao judged, I think those strange birds that attacked you should be looking for something. However, they are puppets after all, and they don't know who did what. There is only one way to get the answer, that is to go to the National Palace in Peru and ask them where they have been attacked recently, and then we can make a judgment. After listening to what Tang Mao said, several people felt that there seemed to be hope, so they were not so scared. But don't hold too much hope. Tang Mao shook his head helplessly and said, according to what you said, the number is increasing each time. I think the next time, it should be a demon tribe. In other words, the next time they come, we must find this damn person. Only when they find what they want, or find the person who did the evil, this matter can be solved. The people who just breathed a sigh of relief suddenly became nervous again. Ha 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 ha. Just when everyone was helpless, Lu Yilin, whose magic power was restricted, suddenly laughed wildly. Hearing the sound, everyone looked over. Lu Yilin said a little crazy, my future is ruined, and I will die in the end. I hated it. But now that you guys are buried with me, I suddenly feel that God is not blind. Ha ha ha. Mo Fan heard this, and stood up, and lifted him up, as if he was ready to drag him out of Jiang Yu's defensive magic tool and let him explode directly. This time, no one stopped Mo Fan, because they all suddenly felt that Lu Yilin really deserved to die. Tang Mao said calmly, killing this idiot will not do anything, so keep him. Besides, he may not die. I think if I'm not mistaken, there should be tens of thousands of such puppet monsters in other places. If we are lucky, as long as the person who did something wrong is solved by these puppets, then all problems will be solved. Hearing what Tang Mao said, AI Jiang Tu and others felt that this seemed to be good news. Chapter 265, Ice Crystal Prison. After talking to everyone, Tang Mao was ready to search along the glowing place of the bead. Although the damage of thunder and wind blades here is very strong, it is nothing for Tang Mao. The defense of ice can still withstand this attack. You guys rest here first, I'll walk around here. After saying this, he was ready to go to the place indicated by the bead. Mu Nijio originally wanted to go with Tang Mao, but she was afraid of being accused of running away because of fear of danger, so she didn't move. Mu Ningxu was the cold one. The most important thing was that, if she was with Tang Mao, she was afraid of being taken advantage of again, so she didn't think of leaving the team. Jiang Shaoxu, on the other hand, still felt that it was safer to be with Tang Mao, and then followed him happily. She didn't feel any sense of security with the people here. Seeing that Jiang Shaoxu and Tang Mao were interested in exploring nearby, AI Jiang Tu didn't stop them. There was no way. There were so many strange birds outside, and they couldn't go anywhere. Only the more reliable Nanju was allowed to follow them, and said, "We'll wait for you here, keep the communicator open." Nanju and Jiang Shaoxu followed Tang Mao, and went deeper into the lightning storm. The storm here was strong enough to shake creatures at the warlord level. The frequency of lightning became higher and higher, and it would fall in front of everyone from time to time. Fortunately, Tang Mao's ice wall defense was strong enough, so there was no possibility of being injured. It was the first time that Nanju saw ice magic played like this, and she was a little surprised and said, "Your ice magic is too abnormal, it actually has such a strong defense ability?" Jiang Shaoxu was not reserved at all, holding Tang Mao's arm. After hearing Nanju's praise, his face was full of joy, as if he was praising her. But for Jiang Shaoxu, that is, this man is her future husband, and it is natural to be happy to praise him. Tang Mao replied, "This is just the ability of my domain. The lightning ahead is too dense, should we continue?" Nanju looked ahead, and saw that the more they walked inward, the more lightning became. The deep yellow electric light in front of them lit up frequently, tearing through the chaos of the wind, almost forming a warning net, oppressing those who were trying to get close to there. Tang Mao did not stop, but said, "Didn't you notice that the thunder here seems different?" Nanju observed carefully after hearing this, and then said in surprise, "Is this a restriction? Most of the restricted thunder is yellow, and such dense thunder and lightning have actually been seen by everyone, that is, in the East Guard Tower of the Japanese Double Guard Tower. Although the girls did not come at first, they also saw its effect later. Generally, places that can set up such things must have treasures. Aren't you curious? The appearance of a restricted barrier set up by people in the storm means that someone wants to lock the secret of the center of the storm. But what secret is it that needs to be hidden in a terrifying hurricane storm? There is no need to think about it. The things inside will definitely not be bad." Of course, Tang Mao didn't know what was inside. However, the fact that the bead was flashing was enough to show that the things inside were definitely very useful to him. Therefore, Tang Mao would definitely not retreat now. However, since it was a restriction, there must be some messy spells inside, so Tang Mao felt that he had to drag Nanju along. This handsome tomboy is an expert in this area. This is a very ancient thunder restriction method. Let's go, let's keep going. Nanju was obviously aroused by curiosity and suddenly became more enthusiastic. She was even ready to take the lead and walk in front. However, she was pulled to her side by Tang Mao. Because she was pulled back suddenly, the collision showed that Tang Mao had meat. And it was very elastic. It looks ordinary at ordinary times, but I didn't expect it to be full of meat at the same time. Nanju and Jiang Shaoxu were glaring at each other. Tang Mao explained, "The wind force outside is now equivalent to mid-level magic." After hearing Tang Mao's explanation, the two women let Tang Mao go. Jiang Shaoxu even locked Tang Mao tightly with her groove. The wind force is equivalent to mid-level magic, which does not mean that its impact is a mid-level magic. It is equivalent to a whole group of mid-level mages bombing them all the time. This destructive power is quite terrible. Fortunately, Tang Mao's ice system has reached the high-level second level. Otherwise, under this continuous bombardment, even his ice wall may not be able to withstand it for long. After all, his ice system is not a simple defensive magic. It is just a domain skill. Nanju seemed to be very interested in it, so he asked seriously, "Can we continue to move forward?" Tang Mao nodded and replied, "Although I'm not a tortoise-shell mage like Zhao Manian, I can still withstand this level." After speaking, Tang Mao pulled his hand away from Jiang Shaoxu. Then he put his arms around each of their shoulders. Before the two girls could even glare at him, Tang Mao explained, "To save magic, just be patient." Jiang Shaoxu snorted, "Don't move." Compared to being taken advantage of by Tang Mao, Nanju was more concerned about the restrictions inside. In fact, she didn't know that Jiang Shaoxu's not moving was just to remind Tang Mao not to take advantage of her. Tang Mao didn't respond. At this time, could he still listen to Jiang Shaoxu? You must be kidding. As for saving magic, that's just for he holding the two girls. His hands seemed to have become a measuring tape along the way. Although he received many cold stares, he still successfully arrived at the restricted area covered with yellow lightning. When looking from the outside, the entire storm appeared black, and the color of the lightning was also covered, giving people a sense of destruction. When arriving inside, they found that the really crazy and dense lightning was actually these yellow restrictions. The restriction is a wall composed of offensive magic energy. It requires a force several times stronger than itself to destroy it. But it also has a door and a key. Once the door and the key are found, the restriction is not that scary and inaccessible. Looking at this thing, Tangmao was glad that he brought it to this tomboy, otherwise it would be a waste. Although he thought this tomboy could do it, Tangmao still asked, "Can you unlock it?" Nanju nodded confidently and said, "Yes, the ruins will give me some clues, but it will take some time, and you need to give me a bigger place. If you are hugged, you naturally can't perform. The most important thing is that this shameless person, it's so hateful. Ice crystal prison." Tangmao nodded, and then quickly drew the ice constellation, and then several thick ice walls suddenly fell down with a bang bang bang, and then the ice wall changed into a semicircular body like Kun's forest prison, perfectly sealing the three of them inside. This is a skill that Tangmao has developed since he reached the second level of the higher level ice system and gained the power of the Snow Girl's extreme cold ice. It not only controls the enemy, but also forms a huge protective barrier. However, this magic consumes a lot of magic energy. Chapter 266 Jiang Shaoxu, Dog. The two of them watched from the side, and occasionally Jiang Shaoxu would roll his eyes at Tangmao. This guy is so naughty. He never stopped at all. It would be fine if he did it normally, but just now, Jiang Shaoxu didn't believe that Tangmao would be honest. He must have taken advantage of Nanju. The two of them played quietly while waiting for Nanju to break the yellow lightning intertwined prohibition. Time passed by. Tangmao was a little bored, and then he pressed Jiang Shaoxu against the ice wall and started to chew. Jiang Shaoxu was so angry that he punched and kicked, but it was useless. Fortunately, Nanju was concentrating on the prohibition, and the adulterous couple next to him didn't enter her sight at all. Time passed by, and Jiang Shaoxu was like a banana at this time, as if it had been peeled, and only the meat was left. Unable to bear it any longer, Jiang Shaoxu whispered, "I will be angry if you keep making trouble. So far, I haven't completely forgiven this bastard. Besides, even if she is not angry with him anymore, it doesn't mean that she can explain it here, right? Special code, Nanju is still here. She has no intention of being a star." Tangmao completely ignored what Jiang Shaoxu said. Jiang Shaoxu was a little out of breath and glared, "Marry me." After this, Tangmao instantly became honest. But it was precisely because of this that Jiang Shaoxu became even angrier. "You bastard." Jiang Shaoxu roared without caring about his image. This roar startled Nanju. She turned back in confusion and looked at the two people full of questions. Tangmao smiled and said, "It's okay, you continue." Jiang Shaoxu had already started to curse like a shrew. Nanju shrugged and continued to relax. Tangmao looked at Jiang Shaoxu and wanted to wipe her mist, but was directly slapped away and rejected. "Don't touch me. If I'll let you touch me again, I'll be a dog." Tangmao curled her lips after hearing what Xiaohu said. She thought to herself, "This dog woman, she's doing this again. But this place is different from other places." Tangmao can't let her toss and turn, and then said, "Be good, don't make trouble. This is still a dangerous area. Get out." Jiang Shaoxu got angry and didn't care about where it was or what the situation was. Tangmao stretched out his hand and said, "If you make trouble again, I'll beat your butt. Don't mention it." This threat is still useful. Jiang Shaoxu covered her small buttocks, humming and groaning, as if she was a little unhappy, but she didn't dare to make trouble. It was already embarrassing enough. If she was beaten by this bastard here and there, how could she face Nanju in the future? How could she be unrestrained in the future? However, Jiang Shaoxu was a little angry. This bastard bullied her like this again and again. She liked to be ambiguous with others, but that was just to satisfy her desire. How could he be like Tangmao, who constantly took advantage of him, and every time he talked about something serious, he would immediately distance himself from him? Question mark? This man is simply terrible. He can be said to be a complete scumbag. Exclamation mark. Seeing that Jiang fox eyes were almost about to burst into anger, he knew that, if he continued like this, the little hoof would explode. He had to look at Nanju and divert his attention and said, "What's the matter? If it doesn't work, just force it in. I still have enough magic power." Nanju was sweating profusely, but he still couldn't completely break it. After hearing what Tang Mao said, he turned around and said, "Are you sure you can handle it?" Tang Mao nodded, "Yes, but it's better not to be too far away. If we keep wasting it here, not only will the magic power be wasted in vain, but we won't be able to get in. Well, let's force it in. I have already figured out some rules." Tang Mao nodded, removed the prison, and then a wall of ice emerged. Regardless of whether Jiang was willing or not, he directly held her by his side. Jiang Shaoxu said, "I don't want to be a dog, but the situation is quite dangerous at the moment. There is nothing I can do." Nanju didn't think too much, of course. She still made a small note of Tang Mao's shamelessness in her heart. It's so shameless. I've never seen such a bully. Then, Nanju pointed the way, and Tang Mao followed. There were yellow lightning all around, and even several times he was hit. The ice wall was directly broken. Fortunately, he could attract lightning. However, in this way, the two women were fine, but Tang Mao was extremely uncomfortable. The soreness and numbness all over the body were intermittent. "Are you okay?" Jiang Shaoxu said, but after seeing Tang Mao being struck by lightning, he still asked with concern. "Listen to the dog barking a few times first, and I'll tell you. Get lost." Seeing that Tang Mao still had the mind to joke, she was relieved. Boom. Pa. A yellow violent thunder struck Tang Mao and the other two, and the ice wall was instantly broken, and Tang Mao immediately introduced the thunder into his body. Fortunately, his purple sky divine thunder was so powerful that it didn't burn the outside and tender the inside. Tang Mao exhaled and signaled, "I'm fine. My soul thunder is much stronger than this." His purple sky divine thunder is now at the level of a small heavenly seed. With its protection, coupled with the enhancement of the demon system itself, although it will hurt, there will be no internal damage. Then he looked at the yellow lightning area again, and saw the dancing lightning around him, saying, "The road ahead seems blocked. The thunder and wind blades here are stronger than before. That should be this side." Nanju pointed to the left and said, "It should be this way." "Should?" Jiang Shaoxu exclaimed with some distress. "Nanju, have you solved it? Are you going to kill this dog man?" Nanju looked at Jiang Shaoxu and smiled. "You want this dog thing to die and reincarnate early, but you can't bear to let him die, and you can't do anything about him, so you can use this thunder to relieve your anger." She is not blind. If the two of them are in this state, if they really can't see anything, then they are brainless. Jiang Shaoxu heard this, and blushed at Tang Mao. Tang Mao looked at the two of them with a black line and said, "Okay, it's time. You two still want to mess with me?" Immediately, the three of them continued to move forward in the direction pointed by Nanju. This time Tang Mao was much more honest. After all, the numbness of the thunder was too real. Even if I would not die, and there was no internal damage at present, it would be very troublesome if I was struck by it continuously. Who knows if I will be struck by the next thunder and become unable to take care of myself. I walked for a while and was struck by several more thunders, but compared with the previous one, it was far less severe. Moreover, as I walked slowly forward, the thunders were not as fierce as before. It was even as powerful as the one outside, and at most it only broke the ice wall. However, with the magic energy, it made up for it perfectly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 267 Scenery in the Ruins. Nanju also noticed the change and breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that we are on the right path. There will be no problems in the future. She was joking just now. In fact, she just didn't want the three of them to be too stressed. In fact, she was also very panicked. Now she was relieved. Tang Mao also nodded. The forbidden lightning became less and less. The three of them suddenly felt that they had passed through a waterfall curtain. After encountering some resistance, the front suddenly became clear. A green land, a large sea of flowers, and a scene like an oil painting suddenly appeared in front of everyone, which made the three of them stunned. And Tang Mao found that the beads that didn't flash much before suddenly became agitated again. Because there was no restriction, Nanju had already left Tang Mao's arms and immediately looked around. In the distance, at the end of the sea of flowers in Greenland, there was a small city. The paint was very bright and there was no sense of antiquity. It was located in such a place like an oil painting, like a fantasy wonderland. Look, there's a city. Jiang Shaoxu looked in the direction Nanju pointed and said in surprise, how is this possible? We should have entered the eye of the storm. How can there be such a large space, and it looks like a fairyland on earth? Tang Mao endured the numbness in his body and smiled with shining eyes. This should be an independent space. I think we have found the entrance to the treasure land. Jiang Shaoxu said with disdain, look at your lack of ability. No way. You are a country bumpkin. What do you want to achieve? He didn't care about her contempt at all. Jiang Shaoxu didn't care either, and continued, then you come to be my son-in-law. Although my family is not as rich as Zhao Manan's family, we can still satisfy you with all the resources we need. Tang Mao decisively changed the subject and said, let's go treasure hunting inside. If he hadn't been involved in any affairs, it wouldn't be impossible to be a son-in-law. But with so many emotional debts, how could he be a son-in-law and eat soft rice? Jiang Shaoxu looks carefree, but her possessiveness is even more extreme than hers. This is why Tang Mao, who obviously likes her very much, dares not make any promises. Seeing Tang Mao perfunctorily treating her again, Jiang Shaoxu stamped her feet in anger, but Tang Mao had already walked over there. What could she do? Following Nanju into this secluded city, if she hadn't been able to travel here, Tang Mao would have found it hard to believe that it had been sealed for such a long time, and the whole town was still filled with the special fragrance of flowers and plants, without any sense of decay at all. The huge black storm was like a layer of time wall, making this independent space in the eye of the storm still in the original era. Along the way, Jiang Shaoxu was also attracted by the flowers and plants here. This is probably the earliest city in South America, and there is this ancient flower emblem at the door. Tang Mao glanced at the flowers and was not very interested. Jiang Shaoxu explained, this flower has a history. It's called lifen, a very rare species. It disappeared from the South American continent about 30 years ago. When they still existed, this rare flower could be used to make wine. My grandfather hid a bottle of this lifen flower wine, saying that he would wait for me to find my ideal husband. Jiang Shaoxu looked at Tang Mao with satisfaction, but the latter pretended not to understand. She had to pout and continue, he will only open it to drink when that heartless man is willing to marry me. In addition, this lifen flower is very special. In the early days, when there were not so many psionic mages, it could be used as an anesthesia instead of opium. It could have a soothing and calming effect. After all, opium contains harmful substances and can be addictive, but lifen has no side effects. It is said that the origin of psionic magic is more or less related to this flower. It was the first time that Tang Mao and Nanju had heard of flowers and plants that could be used instead of psionic magic. Nanju asked suspiciously, can you calculate the age of this city? Jiang Shaoxu shook his head and walked away. No, this flower is rare and precious. I don't know when it was first used, but I think the city and family that use it as a flower emblem will definitely be recorded in the history books of Peru. I will find out when I go out to check it out. Also, I'm not interested in history. I'm just curious whether there are still these lifen flowers that have become extinct in the outside world growing here. It can be seen that Jiang Shaoxu cares about lifen flowers very much. She has begun to look for them in this ancient city. This city is not very big, quiet, and peaceful, and there should be no danger. Nanju was also attracted by some things here, while Tang Mao searched in the direction of the beads. The whole town is very well preserved, as if it is completely stuck in a certain time and space, no longer passing away. The streets are spotlessly clean, and the houses are not damaged by the years. It is completely like stepping into a beautiful foreign town. except for the absence of a person. Everything is very peaceful. He followed the bead's instructions, crossed the wide street, and found a very beautiful fountain at the intersection ahead. It was beautiful because there was a beautiful and graceful female sculpture on the fountain, with a snake-like waist and delicate and smooth belly that were particularly eye-catching. In terms of body proportions, she was indeed somewhat different from Asians, with a relatively slender upper body, a proud bust, and a slenderness and fullness that Oriental girls did not have. At this moment, the bead had reached its strongest level. Tang Mao looked at the clear spring pool, and then looked at the sculpture of the beautiful woman in gauze. After a pause, Tang Mao found that there seemed to be a strange energy here, and then he smashed the beautiful statue with a punch. Sure enough, the moment it was smashed, the bead became even more excited. Killin didn't seem to be very interested in this, and didn't make any movements. Tang Mao put the bead here. It began to absorb the energy in it. However, the bead only absorbed about 1/3, and it seemed that it could not absorb it anymore, and the crystal clear and glowing liquid never dropped again. Seeing that the bead could not absorb it, and Killin did not react at all, Tang Mao took out a bottle and collected the remaining light liquid. He was vague about other things, but this liquid could help the contracted beast improve its ability in a short time. The bead was filled with about 1/3 of the energy, and he got an extra bottle. For Tang Mao, this was a fruitful trip. Chapter 268 The Angry General. After Tang Mao got what he wanted, he went to look for Jiang Shaoxu and Nanju. After seeing the two of them, it can be seen that they seem to have made some good discoveries in this small town. Jiang Shaoxu found the lithan flower she wanted, and the smile on her face was like a little girl who got a little red flower. Seeing Jiang Shaoxu's satisfied look, Tang Mao smiled and said, "Did you find what you want?" Jiang Shaoxu snorted lightly, with an expression that said, "I don't want to bother with you to ruin my good mood." In this regard, Tang Mao did not continue to make himself unhappy, and Nanju also looked satisfied. Although everyone came together to hunt for treasures, what they found was this, and there was no need to ask questions. After Tang Mao recovered some magic power enough to leave here, the three of them began to return to the outside. At the moment when the three stepped out of the restriction of this small town, a pair of yellow eyes suddenly opened in the hurricane sky cave above the small town. The eyes stared at them, staring at them leaving, until they completely walked out of the yellow lightning restriction. It slowly closed again. However, no one noticed this scene. The three of them returned to the outside with the forbidden attack. When they returned to the original place outside, Nanju looked at AI Jiang and said, "How is it? Are those strange birds still outside?" AI Jiang paused, then said, "It seems that they have left." Tang Mao paused, then said, "In this case, let's go back and rest, and then rush to the Peruvian pavilion. Only through them can we know where these puppets have attacked. Then we will have a chance to find the offender." Everyone began to return along the original route. Lu Yilin was firmly controlled. No accidents happened when everyone crossed the Gobi Valley. After returning to the resting place, AI Jiang contacted the instructor, handed Lu Yilin to the instructors, and left immediately. Rushed to the target destination, the Peruvian pavilion, the Royal Felipe Castle. Arrived in Lima by plane, everyone didn't have a mind to do any sightseeing and shopping, and hurriedly continued to take a car to the Royal Felipe Castle on the Callao coast. Royal Felipe Castle is located on the seashore, facing the vast Pacific Ocean. This castle is extremely magnificent. Like Japan, Peru often faces harassment from sea monsters. The main purpose of building this Royal Felipe Castle is to serve as the command and strategic center of the entire western coastline of Peru. After all, Lima, the capital of Peru, is not far away. Now is the season of calm, and the western coastal line of Peru is relatively calm. Local news reports do not mention the word sea monster. This is great news for Peru. After all, they are not as cunning as Tokyo, Japan, who have developed the attack of sea monsters into a way to make money. For their country, sea monsters are natural disasters that affect fishing, the safety of cities, and the growth of crops. In short, the appearance of sea monsters is a disaster, and the absence of sea monsters is a great blessing. Arriving at the Royal Felipe Castle, reporting their identities, the guards guarding the gate also politely led everyone into the castle. After everyone entered the castle, a man with a docker face came over, smiling at everyone, looking polite. He said enthusiastically, "Hello, I'm the royal wizard here, Osto. I'm glad that you can come to our Peru. Hello, we are the players of the Chinese national government, and we are here to get the medal. But now we have an urgent matter to ask." AI Jiangta stated his identity, and then asked questions in a hurry. Osto asked in confusion, "Oh, in addition to getting the national hall medal, do you have other things to do?" AI Jiangtu said again, "Yes, we want to know, have you had any strange birds attacking the city in the past few days?" Strange birds. Osto looked at AI Jiangtu in confusion. AI Jiangtu also told him about the previous events and the symbol of the strange birds. After hearing AI Jiangtu's introduction and what he said, Osto was instantly shocked. At the same time, a man in military uniform with a black iron face suddenly walked out of the fortress. There were about 5 or 6 people following him, both men and women. Judging from their clothes, they were all people of status. As soon as General Mott arrived, he said in a cold voice, "Are you from the Chinese government?" "Yes." AI Jiangta responded indifferently, but he was very unhappy with his tone. Then he said in a very unfriendly voice, "Why, do you have any advice?" General Mott snorted coldly and said, "You must have done something stupid when you came to our country. Come to the watchtower with me." Everyone was puzzled. Everyone had no grudges with this general. Why was he so unfriendly? But Tang Mao was a little suspicious, and at the same time, had a bad premonition in his heart. At this time, Ostro couldn't help but say, "General, they seem to have offended the Nazca beast. You know it too?" General Mott asked with a little surprise. Ostro was also stunned, obviously not understanding what this meant. Not paying attention to Ostro's expression, the general said again, "Don't talk nonsense. Follow me to the watchtower, and you will understand everything." Everyone had no choice but to follow the general to the watchtower. The watchtower is very high, and you can see the distant ocean, and you can also take in the dozens of kilometers of coastline on both sides, including the blue sky without a single cloud. General Mott still had a dark face. After they all came up, he pointed to the direction where the long northern coastline intersected with the long sky, and said in a murderous tone, "Look at what you have done. If it weren't for the people in Hamilton City who intercepted your message for me, I wouldn't even know who to find. You have brought so much trouble to our country, do you know?" Hearing this, everyone looked in the direction, and gradually found that a large cloud appeared in the northern sky. The entire blue sky was as clean as the sea, and the sudden appearance of these clouds on the horizon was particularly eye-catching. But they were not white, but blue and green! Exclamation mark. The sky was emerald, so that this color did not attract much attention at first, until they densely formed clouds, and covered a large area of the sky. They finally found that there was something extremely strange there. Strange birds. It was still that group of strange birds. Everyone looked at Tang Mao with some confusion. After all, wasn't it said that this thing could be done several times in a few days? Chapter 269, The Strange Bird That Doesn't Give You a Break. Tang Mao curled his lips and said, "Looking at me is useless. I think they were not killed before, and they didn't deal with us. That's why their number doubled." The clear sky seemed to be covered by them. The chirping sound came from hundreds of kilometers away, and it was like a chorus of lightning, becoming clearer and clearer, more and more piercing and sharp. This is already a strange bird from a demon tribe. They are no match for 10,000 of them, let alone 100,000. However, everyone was fortunate that the place they were in was a military stronghold. Just when some people were glad that they were in a castle, General Mott's voice was roaring, "I don't care what you did. Please leave this city now, right now." Muting Ying looked at the general in disbelief, as if she didn't hear clearly, and asked, "What did you say? You want us to leave?" That Ostro also hurriedly said, "General, these children will have no way out if they go out." General Mott's eyes turned cold, staring at Ostro so hard that he couldn't move. Then he said, "You mean we have to sacrifice our soldiers? Do you know how many of our soldiers these strange birds can kill?" Ostro was speechless, but he felt that it was very inhumane to drive these Chinese players out at this time. It was like tying them to a wooden frame on a high cliff, waiting for the vultures in the sky to eat them. But at this time, He obviously wouldn't say anything more. After all, if he kept forcing them, he would probably be one of the people thrown out. Seeing that the Guofu team members had no intention of leaving, General Mott turned his eyes to the others. His eyes were already filled with murderous intent. He said coldly, "I won't say it again. If you don't leave, I will have to kill you and throw you out." Hearing General Mott's words, everyone's anger suddenly ignited. This is forcing them to go out and die. The strange bad tribe, let alone their group of people, even if they dragged a large army here, they might not be able to wipe them all out. The only thing they can rely on is the defense of the city. Nanju was a little annoyed, but she still kept her sanity and said, "Your country didn't deal with the hidden dangers of the demons. Why should we take this responsibility?" She knew that now she could only choose to deny it. Only by staying in this castle can they have a chance to survive. Otherwise, I'm afraid there is only one way left, death. However, General Mott said unreasonably, "Humph, we have no obligation to use the lives of our soldiers to protect you. I only give you one last minute. Leave this city immediately." AI Jiang to stop Nanju from getting angry and said, "Nanju, forget it. There is no need to waste our time to survive with such a person." He knew that the other party had been planning to throw them out since they met. Of course, there are also people who want to stay here and never go out. But General Mott is also a ruthless person. If he doesn't go out and wait for the monster bird to attack, he will take action. Jiang Shaoxu could no longer bear it and pointed at General Mott and said, "If you have the guts, just kill us all. We are here for you to kill. If you kill one, the forces behind Huaxia will wipe out your clan. I want to see how many high-ranking officials behind you, a broken general, are enough for us to avenge." Jiang Shaoxu was also domineering, and he directly said what General Mott feared the most. Huaxia is a great country, and their small country really can't afford to offend. Moreover, since these people can become members of the national government, they are already geniuses. If they are dealt with, the government wants to calm down the matter, and those big forces that are independent of each other will definitely not be so easy to talk to. On the surface, they will never do anything extreme, but who knows what kind of revenge they will take in secret? Although he was afraid, he still pretended to be impartial and said, "Do you think threatening me will work? This matter was caused by you." Jiang Shaoxu snorted coldly, and then said, "You said we attracted the strange bird. What evidence do you have?" Mott sneered, "Humph, Osto, do you think this general has any evidence?" Jiang Shaoxu was a little angry, but he was speechless. After all, the first thing they did when they came here was to find the person who caused this ban. Not only Mott was afraid of the power behind the Huaxia country, but Osto was also afraid. Otherwise, he would not have helped them speak up before. But now that the matter has been settled, he said again, "Everyone, don't argue here anymore. I think General Mott is also considering the safety of the city. After all, it is a tribe of strange birds. We in Lima can deal with sea monsters, but it is extremely difficult to deal with aerial monsters. I'm afraid that there will be bloodshed. While there is still some time, you should quickly run south along this coastline. There is an old castle there. You can hide there and barely hold on for some time. You should figure out as soon as possible where you offended the Nazca ancient beast. Maybe there will be a glimmer of hope." Tang Mao said, "Let's go. After we deal with this group of strange birds, we will come back to deal with this bastard." "No, I won't leave. If you want to leave, go ahead." Zhu Jiaming is the most afraid of death in the national government team. He absolutely doesn't want to get involved in such a life-threatening matter. Tang Mao didn't care and turned around and started to leave. "Then you stay here. As for whether you can survive, that's your business." Zhu Jiaming didn't plan to leave, but when he saw Maud's murderous look, he realized that he would definitely die the fastest if he stayed here. Then he followed everyone happily. After leaving the castle, several people were ready to find the castle, and at this time Tang Mao called out Yanji. There was no way they could only waste some energy at the moment, otherwise, these strange birds would only take 1 minute to dismember them. After feeding Yanji, several people ran wildly along the long coastline. As the entire strange bad tribe got closer and closer, everyone didn't even have the heart to complain. They just wanted to get rid of them as soon as possible. Finally, after running wildly for a while, they saw an old castle near a reef beach. It was an ancient building embedded between the sea cliffs, and some areas were even soaked in seawater. Osto really didn't lie to everyone. The terrain of this ancient castle was very good, which could solve the dilemma of facing enemies on all sides, and allow them to delay their death a little. But it was just a delay. Chapter 270. Hold on for 10 minutes. Rushing into the Sea Cliff Castle. The castle was empty. The entire building was also in Spanish style and relatively well preserved. The stone of the Sea Cliff Castle was very solid, and it was difficult for the strange birds to destroy it in a short time. However, it was not possible to let the strange birds peck at it. Once the entire castle was smashed by them, everyone would have no place to hide. After entering it, Nanju did not think about dealing with the strange birds. Instead, she searched everywhere. No one knew what she was looking for. After searching for a while, Nanju really found something useful. She said in surprise, "There is a barrier. This castle has a barrier. You buy me enough time. I will revive the barrier. It can support us for a while." The castle barrier. This is too important for their current situation. When they heard that there was still hope, they naturally gritted their teeth and persisted. AI Jiang quickly assigned everyone to various positions in the castle. There was a sea cliff behind them, the ocean below, and the castle defenses on both sides. Now everyone only had to block the enemies on one side, and there was still room for fighting. Tang Mao looked at everyone and said, "You guys hold on first. I need some time. As long as I get better, you can all be saved." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Especially Zhu Jiaming, who mocked directly, "You don't want to keep your magic power and run away after we die." Tang Mao glanced at him and sneered, "This strange bird has nothing to do with me. Even if I leave you and run, there will be no trouble." Zhu Jiaming said with some envy and jealousy, "I knew you wanted to escape." He also saw that these strange birds did have a target, and the target was them. Boom. Just as Zhu Jiaming finished speaking, a fierce thunderbolt hit him directly. Tang Mao looked at this idiot teammate and said in an extremely cold voice, "Don't challenge my tolerance limit. Next time, I will kill you directly." After warning Zhu Jiaming, Tang Mao looked at AI Jiang and said, "You all go together. 10 minutes at most is enough." AI Jiang didn't think Tang Mao wanted to run away. After all, if he really wanted to run away, there was no need to follow him here. Moreover, after hearing what Tang Mao said, he inexplicably became confident. Perhaps, their situation was not that bad. Then, AI Jiang didn't divide them into groups. Although some others didn't believe Tang Mao. However, after seeing Zhu Jiaming's chart state, they were sure that Tang Mao was serious. Of course, there were also people who trusted Tang Mao, such as several girls, Zhao Manan and Emofan. Zhao Manan believed in Tang Mao because he was rescued many times. Emofan believed in Tang Mao because he had seen Tang Mao's demon system. In fact, more because they all knew that Tang Mao was right. This strange bird has almost nothing to do with him. But he still came. Mu Ningxu, such a cold goddess, was touched in her heart. She felt that Tang Mao could come here because of her. And Jiang Shaoxu was even more narcissistic. She felt that Tang Mao was a man who said one thing and said another. He clearly loved her, but he refused to admit it. If he didn't love her, why would Tang Mao get involved at this time? At this time, Tang Mao didn't have too many thoughts. He sat in a quiet space in the castle. Time passed by minute. 9 minutes had passed, but Zhao Yanji hadn't changed at all? Tang Mao was a little puzzled. You know, Emofan fed Zhao Yanji the time liquid, which was much later than his own time. But didn't she also evolve? Why didn't Zhao Yanji change when she came to him? Tang Mao couldn't help but ask, "Girl, don't you have any reaction?" If Zhao Yanji really couldn't evolve, then it would mean that the boast he just made would be slapped in the face. The most important thing is, can it really be solved by slapping in the face? If 100,000 strange birds rushed down in one breath, it would be almost unimaginable. Ring Zhao Yanji looked at Tang Mao with some doubts, indicating that she had not changed at all. That little puzzled expression was so cute. However, Tang Mao didn't have a mind to appreciate her cuteness at this time. In the royal Felite castle in the distance, General Moat stood on the watchtower, his eyes fixed on the strange birds that covered the sky in the distance. It's been so long, why haven't the strange birds dispersed yet? The female staff officer in black military uniform said with some surprise. Maybe they are still alive. Osto said with some emotion. The female staff officer said in disbelief, how is that possible? It's been so long. Do you think a group of magicians in their 20s can resist such a huge tribe of strange birds? They are stronger and stronger than we thought. Hearing the conversation between the two people next to him, Mort was a little impatient. In fact, he hoped that they would die, because if they didn't die, then he would be in danger. Because he knew that the other party was a person with a very powerful background in Huaksha. Then he seemed to be telling himself, or maybe to the two people, they still have to die. If they die, these Nazca strange birds will disappear and everything will be calm. And at the moment he finished speaking, he saw that the ancient castle was spinning with flames, like a dragon flying up, passing through the brown flames. Moreover, there was a vague figure emerging, and above that figure, a strong flame was emitting. Exclamation mark. The figure had long hair, and was burning with a sacred charm. Her clean feet were stepping on a blanket of fire, without any dust from the world. The most important thing was the breath of this figure. It almost crushed any demon they had seen. Even the great monarch might not be able to compare with it? Question mark. This general? The female staff officer was stunned and said, what happened? There seems to be a terrifying breath coming out of there. Mort looked at the castle in the distance with a confused face. How could he know what happened? The whole person was completely stupid. However, he still firmly believed in his heart that this was not a reinforcement or a trump card. It was just a demon that suddenly appeared in the castle a few minutes ago, when everyone persisted for 10 minutes and consumed most of their magic energy and retreated. Tang Mao walked out alone, and then he released all kinds of magic by himself and began to resist the army of strange birds alone. Everyone was confused when they saw this scene, because they were still waiting to see Tang Mao start. But why did he fight by himself? Question mark. However, Tang Mao did not intend to respond to everyone's confusion. After all, sometimes, talking too much will cause unnecessary trouble. There are always stupid dogs who will complain. Little Yanji wanted to go together to kill the enemy, but Tang Mao did not take her. Because, at the moment, she is the only one who can save lives. When Tang Mao was dealing with the strange bad tribe alone, everyone began to rest. AI Jiangtu obviously didn't think that this was Tang Mao's big deal. However, Tang Mao said that they still needed to wait, and he was responsible for holding on for a while, so naturally there was nothing to say. In fact, he wanted to go together, but Tang Mao refused. Just let them rest here. What's even more perverted is that this monster actually stopped the monsters of a tribe and didn't let them break through the defense line. Moreover, 3 minutes have passed now. AI Jiangtu and others didn't know that after Tang Mao appeared, the intermediate and high level magics were released almost continuously, but time passed by minute, and the little Yanji, who was originally thought to grow rapidly in 1 or 2 minutes, did not grow up. Just when Tang Mao was about to pull out Mo Fan and let him use the demon system, a devastating fire suddenly shot up into the sky from the castle. Chapter 271 Little Princess Yan. The Supreme Monarch. Moreover, at the same time, a terrifying pressure was instantly released. After Tang Mao sensed this pressure, he instantly understood why Yanji had not evolved successfully for a long time. It turned out that this little girl was too strong, so the catalysis and improvement were also slow. But after rapid growth, she directly reached the stage of the Supreme Monarch, which is the peak of the mature stage. As the dulling of the fire element, Yanji, who has reached this stage, let alone a group of war general level monster birds, even if they are commander level, what can they do? With a fire, they can be turned into ashes directly, leaving nothing behind. The other members of the team were all dumbfounded. Not long ago, Yanji was just a little lolly. Although she was also very strong at that time, she was far less terrifying than she is now. At this time, they also understood what the big move Tang Mao was talking about was. Damn, this breath can almost be said to be the strongest existence that the National Service team members have ever encountered. Exclamation mark. Ling Ling. Although the voice of little Yanji was still so pleasant, it was obviously a little more low and long, a little less crisp, and a little more majestic, which was completely the difference between a sweet lolly and a dignified queen. The beauty of the older girl was pure and innocent, and the beauty of the younger girl was almost passionate. However, no matter whether it was the older girl or the younger girl, once they reached maturity, they were almost real queens. Go, girl, kill them. With Tang Mao's order, little Yanji rolled up a vortex of flames and directly broke through the ancient castle that was in the way and faced the strange bad tribe in the sky. Boom. The robbery flame bloomed beautifully above the ancient castle like a lotus, but the diameter of this lotus directly exaggeratedly exceeded the distance of nearly 500 meters, making people feel that the sky above their heads was burned out in an instant. This blooming fire lotus was the result of little Yanji's power. Thousands of strange birds turned into ashes in less than a second, leaving only a few rainbow crown feathers. At this moment, even Ai Jiangtu, who was usually serious, was shocked. He had always known that Tang Mao was a monster, but this was too much of a monster, wasn't he? The formation of the fire lotus did not take as long as imagined, nor did it take as long as a profound skill to brew. It was as if little Yanji's jade hand gently flicked in the air, and then a destructive fire lotus exploded in the flock of strange birds, and the sky, that was originally full of feathers and claws, suddenly had a piece missing. Ring. Then little Yanji sang like a song, and the single melody suddenly echoed in the sky. She did not use the fire ability, but the power of the space system. The space suddenly became heavy, and the flying strange birds flapped their wings more and more laboriously. Not long after, large groups of strange birds inexplicably fell into the reef. The breath was hot, and with a strong airflow, it instantly burned the reef ocean into a huge vortex of fire. Those strange birds, pulled to the ground by gravity, were collected in the vortex of fire like wheat. Tang Mao looked at where Xiao Yanji was waving, and couldn't help but blame her. Girl, stop playing, solve it quickly. The people, who were already shocked, heard Tang Mao say this, and looked up at the sky with their heads stiff. Xiao Yanji pouted her mouth, a little unhappy. However, she still listened to the words of the unscrupulous father. Ring. After being blamed again, Xiao Yanji folded her hands on her chest, and recited the fire spell in a quiet and picturesque manner. The fire spell showed red symbols one by one, densely appearing around Yanji. Suddenly, all the fire spells burned, and the raging fire they burned formed a winged bird. Yanji was completely transformed into a giant flaming bird, and her arrogance and nobility were perfectly displayed, just like a phoenix. The fiery bird flapped its wings, and countless flaming feathers flew everywhere. It tilted and inserted into the sky full of strange birds, creating a gorgeous flight path, and burning into a bridge in the sky. Exclamation mark. Wherever the flames passed, the strange birds turned into ashes in an instant. Fiery red, a sea of fiery red, the army of strange birds intertwined with blue and green was now trapped in a sea of fiery red, and then one by one they turned into nothing. In less than a minute, there was no one left in the monster tribe. After all, they were puppets, and they were puppets that were willing to fly into the fire without fear of death. If it was a demon with intelligence, let alone such an annihilation, even if the other party used the method of consumption, there would be plenty of opportunities to deal with the members of the government in the castle, instead of seeking death here. Because she was the supreme monarch, almost all the fire element in the nearby heaven and earth were under the control of Yanji, so this time, there were almost no strange birds that could escape. Little Yanji flew back and landed beside Tang Mao like a person who was not in the world. Her hot and holy flames looked so noble and gorgeous that those members of the government who had not yet fully recovered from their daze all kept an unbelievable face. Mu Nijio looked at Yanji, and it was hard to imagine that the Queen Yanji in front of her was really the little Lolita who only knew how to eat all day. Little Yanji seemed to have noticed the gaze of Mu Nijio's mother. After acting coquettishly beside Tang Mao for a while, she suddenly came to Mu Nijio. Because of the flames, there was no harm and she threw herself directly into Mu Nijio's arms. When she was a little Lolita, Mu Nijio could hold her, but now the little Yanji was much bigger, almost as tall as Tang Mao. She couldn't hold it. Fortunately, little Yanji didn't mean to overwhelm her. She just buried her head and lay down in Munichio's arms, rubbing against her coquettishly, but several male compatriots were very jealous. Munichio was a little shy and a little itchy. Hey, don't make trouble. Be good. Seeing Munichio and Xiao Yanji being intimate together, Jiang Shaoxu stared at Tang Mao with dissatisfaction, and at the same time he was a little envious. And he looked like he was explaining to me. Tang Mao shrugged and said, when Zhao Jiao and I are eating, as long as Xiao Yanji runs out, I will feed her first, and then I will start eating. That's why she is so attached. The girls couldn't help but envy such a cold and powerful darling of fire, or Yanji, who has reached the level of monarch. Since he is so gentle to her, Tang Mao didn't care about these. At this time, he urgently needed to rest and restore his magic power. Moreover, it was not just him, but the others also rested exhaustedly, and the liquid of time was only temporary. After about half a day, the domineering, majestic, noble and beautiful Queen Yanji gradually recovered into a little loli with short limbs. After returning to her Lolita body, little Yanji yawned. Then she looked at her father and said that she seemed to have touched the bottleneck of advancement. However, before that, Tang Mao needed to upgrade the fire system to the high level second level like the ice system, so that she would have a chance to advance. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. After all, Tang Mao, the father of Yanji, had not been upgraded, so how could she upgrade an egg? Therefore, even if there was no great opportunity, with the irrigation of this time liquid, there was a chance to help her advance. Chapter 272 Revenge after being rescued. After a good rest, the members of the national government team re-entered the gate of the Royal Philippe Castle. Compared to the first time they entered, they were more angry. They were extremely angry. After all, it was this damned man who drove them there not long ago. Fortunately, it was Tang Mao who came and helped Yanji improve her strength. Otherwise, they would have been dead now, right? General Mott and other staff officers were stunned when they learned that the national government team came here. They looked at them in surprise and asked, you are not dead. At the same time, they also became curious. Could the powerful aura and the terrifying fire elemental power before be emitted by these young people? If so, what else is there in this year's World Championship? Question mark. AI Jiang snorted coldly and said, I really disappoint you. AI Jiang, who had never been happy or angry, was furious this time. He would not let go of General Mott who expelled them from the city, but AI Jiang also understood that it was impossible to shake the city general with their own strength. He had already reported the incident back to his country, and someone would come to ask for justice from the person in charge of Peru in their country. Unlike AI Jiang, Jiang Shaoxu, the little shrew, was really furious. You know, in the previous situation, if there was no Tang Mao, because they did not help, what would they live for? Even if they asked for help, there was no way to go to heaven or enter the earth. Looking at Mott, he said coldly, your official position is not guaranteed. Take off this military uniform that I hate, and wait to go to the most harsh and desolate place, to be a border guard. General Mott couldn't help laughing when he heard a threat from the girl in front of him. He didn't care, and, in his opinion, it was just a joke. General Mott said nonchalantly, do you think of this place as your own country? I know you have a strong background, but don't forget, this is Peru, this is Lima, not your China. Even if we cross the entire Pacific Ocean, you will still pay the price. If there is only one force behind these people, it would be difficult to punish such people across the international community. But if the forces behind the entire national government players unite, it will be completely different. The black female staff officer did not want to continue to dwell on this matter, but said, did you come here to talk about this? After all, if the sky falls, Mott will hold it up, and it doesn't matter to them. AI Jiang came here to vent his anger, and said in a calm voice, let's get our things. Austro then remembered that the badge of Peru had not been given to them yet, so he hurried back to the castle and carefully took out a badge of the Peruvian National Pavilion that was carefully crafted by their country. This national emblem also has their national animal on it, and it is carved very delicately. Many royal mages are proud to wear it. He handed the badge to AI Jiang, who held the medal in his hand. Bang! Suddenly, AI Jiang clenched his fist and exerted force violently. That's right, he came here to give them a great insult. The special badge instantly turned into a piece of scrap iron in his palm, and AI Jiang 2 threw it at the feet of General Mott like garbage. You. Before Mott could get angry, Jiang Shaoxu said coldly, "What do you mean by you?" The seal of the National Hall basically represents the emblem and flag of a country. Being crushed and thrown on the ground like trash is a great insult to both the Royal Mage and the City General. Their duty is to maintain the dignity of the country. General Mott took a step forward, and his aura suddenly pressed on AI Jiang 2. Then he said angrily, "What do you think this place is? Show some respect." AI Jiang 2 was not afraid at all, and sneered, "If a country does not even have the backbone to protect the people who enter the country legally, what else is there to respect?" Just as he was about to continue his angry accusations, a courier officer walked over here quickly and whispered something in General Mott's ear. General Mott was slightly stunned, looking at the members of the national government with some disbelief. Not to mention that Jiang Shaoxu is a psychic mage. Even if he is not a psychic mage, from his expression, it is enough to see that the pressure should be coming. He immediately said, "Don't stare at us like that," I said. "Your official position is no longer secure." Mott looked at the document in disbelief and was in shock. Fast, too fast. General Mott knew that he might be punished internationally, but he never thought that the punishment would come so quickly, and he never thought that the punishment would be more serious than he thought. He couldn't help but step back a few steps, his eyes full of disbelief. General Mott held the document and felt that he could hardly hold it. He muttered in disbelief, "Every decision I make is for the city. Why can they do this to me?" The black female staff officer also took a look and found that her name was on the list of dismissed people. Her eyes almost popped out. Originally, she thought that Mott would hold up the sky if it fell, but these Chinese players had such a huge background that they could directly convict these important members of the city's defense army without a long trial period. How is this possible? They were not even given a chance to defend themselves. The iron-like document was delivered directly, which was too hard to believe. "General, there are new documents." Before Mott could come to his senses, another messenger officer came down riding an iron-feathered leopard. General Mott took the document, opened it, and his face changed again. Osto stood aside, glanced at it, and was immediately shocked. It said, "In the southwest, several cities were attacked by unknown demons and entered alert defense. The Yale mine was surrounded by a huge demon tribe, and thousands of miners were trapped. An emergency call for help was issued." General Mott's mind was in a mess. What was going on? Why did so many demon attacks suddenly break out in their west? It seemed that a quarter of the territory of a country had become turbulent. Fire crown lizard, blade demon spider, storm dog. These. Osto looked at it, and the whole person was in a state of disarray. Several staff officers also had wooden expressions. They couldn't believe these names more than they were fired. Chapter 273 Helping requires payment. Mott never thought that in less than half a day, the military commander who provided protection for the mine veins issued an order for all soldiers guarding the mine veins to evacuate. This evacuation immediately caused countless casualties and heavy losses to their southwest mine veins. Mott pointed at the government with a pale face. "You. AI Jiang 2 responded coldly, "We are not obliged to sacrifice lives for your citizens." General Mott looked at AI Jiang 2 and suddenly realized that the young wizard in front of him had a very amazing background. What's more terrifying is that the mine veins were attacked, and the largest Yale mine vein was surrounded by the strange Nazca monsters, and thousands of lives were trapped in the mine. Mott must be responsible for this, and for the lives of thousands of Peruvian people trapped in the mines! Exclamation mark. As the angry and condemning documents were delivered one after another, General Mott and his staff finally realized how stupid their decision was. In fact, with the city defense of Lima, the strange birds of a tribe could not pose too much of a threat. Even if there were super-class mages joining forces, the casualties would definitely not be heavy. After all, there was still the city barrier. But now, what happened was obviously a more painful price than fighting with the strange bad tribe. Even if he was dismissed, he had to solve the problem of the largest Yale mine being surrounded. Osto, who still had the right to speak, looked at the people of the national government team and said, "Everyone, please calm down. Aren't you also entangled by the Nazca death god now? I think you also need to solve it as soon as possible. Without waiting for AI Jiang and others to speak, Tang Mao said indifferently, we don't need it. I think when your mine is breached, all crises will be solved. This so-called Nazca death god actually just wants to get back what they have stolen. Without protection, it will only take a few days for them to be breached with their armed forces. As long as they get their things back, all problems will be solved. Osto was stunned when he heard this. Similarly, General Moat and several staff officers here were also stunned. Osto did not give up and said, that is the Nazca god of death. If you can't calm its anger, you will be entangled forever. Tang Mao knew very well that, as long as these puppets took back their lost things, the problem would be solved. So he didn't care about these at all, and said in a calm voice, excuse me, in your eyes, it is the god of death, but in my eyes, they are nothing. AI Jiang and the others were actually quite panicked, but seeing Tang Mao's confident look, they had nothing to question. Seeing Tang Mao like this, and seeing that the others didn't say anything, Osto understood that the captain here didn't seem to make the decision. He looked at Tang Mao very sincerely and said, do you have a way to solve the bad luck of the Nazca god of death? Not really, but I do know how to solve this problem. Moreover, I can tell you clearly that this time I came here to solve this matter. Speaking of which, we are also implicated. After saying that, Tang Mao paused, looked at Moat, and said contemptuously, it's a pity that your stupid general didn't give us any chance. Now that our crisis has been resolved, I think there is no need to do anything next. Without protection, it is naturally impossible for them to guard for 7 days. Of course, they have no chance to hold on for 7 days. After all, these puppets are not afraid of death. Otherwise, they might be able to get rescue. Although their national strength is not weak, because there are soldiers guarding here all the time, it will take at least 2 or 3 days for support. At this time, Moat and his men have been taken away, and Osto is currently the main person in charge here. After hearing what Tang Mao said, he can already believe half of it, that the person in front of him knows how to solve this incident. Mott and the others have been dismissed. Please calm down. Besides, I wanted to help you before. Mott is guilty, but the people are innocent. As long as you can help us solve this crisis, I can make the decision and give you all the resources of the national government students this time. Immediately, Ostro decided to use his old face to ask Tang Mao for help, taking advantage of the fact that he had spoken for them before. Jiang Xiaoxu was still very grateful for Ostro's help before, but he just didn't have enough status, so he couldn't help them. He looked at Tang Mao and said, if Ostro hadn't told us about the castle, we would have died long ago. Mott is a beast, but Ostro is a good man. Don't kill Peruvians with one stick. Tang Mao looked at Jiang Xiaoxu and said, so what do you mean, you want me to help them? Jiang Xiaoxu nodded, and then said, if you are not involved in danger, I suggest you can help them. Moreover, you can get a lot of resources, which is a good deal. Seeing Jiang Xiaoxu speak, Tang Mao seemed to be moved. Then Osto said, in our castle, there is a necklace that enhances the power of psychic magic. I think this beautiful lady, you should be a psychic, right? I can give it to you. Jiang Xiaoxu paused, looking at Osto, as if you are very sensible. Then he looked at Tang Mao. Seeing the little hoof's appearance, Tang Mao shrugged and said, then come with me. Ah. Jiang Xiaoxu paused. She said a little scared, I'm not a violent magician. Are you willing to let a weak woman like me go with you to take risks among the demons? Tang Mao didn't spoil her, but said indifferently, if you want benefits, you naturally have to pay something. Of course, the main reason is that Munugio and Muningsu are here. It's not good to go too far. Although Tang Mao was still very indifferent, he explained, okay, don't pretend with that. Since I decided to take you with me, how can I harm you? The main reason is that you have seen the so-called uncle, but I haven't. That's why I need you to go with me. Before, they talked about the appearance and characteristics of the uncle, and some of his smells, and it just happened to be speculated that the other party came from the mine. In addition, the mine is now attacked by these monsters that have never been heard of, that is, the monster army under the command of the Nazca death god is coming. Tang Mao was sure that the person who did something wrong must be in this mine. That uncle? Jiang Shaoxu paused, and then said, you mean, what did he do to provoke the Nazca death god? Tang Mao nodded very affirmatively and said, yes. The conversation between the two made Ostro confused. As for the other members of the government, they were obviously not very interested in it. Muningsu was interested. After all, she was also extremely short of resources. However, Tang Mao did not call her to join, and she was embarrassed to speak. You too. Tang Mao interrupted Ostro. Before he could speak, Ostro, I can promise to help you. But I want 2 copies of your government's resources for everyone, as well as the necklace that you said can enhance the mind magic and the information of one person. Ostro's mouth twitched slightly. He could still decide on 1 resource and 1 mind magic weapon, but 2 copies. At this moment, he received another document. After seeing the information written on the document, Ostro immediately said, okay, as long as you can solve this crisis, I can agree to all these. Then, Tang Mao got the information of the people he needed. Then he left the castle with Jiang Shaoxu and Ostro's designated escorts, and rushed to the mine where the uncle in the information was. 2 copies of the resources of all the members of the Peruvian government team. This is already a considerable income. At that time, even if he supports Muningsu with 1 copy, it will be enough for him to be happy. He naturally saw that Muningsu wanted to join, but he had already decided to take Jiang Shaoxu with him, so he naturally couldn't take Muningsu with him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 274 Betting. Arriving at the Yale mine, the valley of the mine connected by 2 mountains has become a den of monkeys, and the number of monkeys is no less than that of the stones on the ground. The general guarding here is already in a state of panic. And this general is none other than Moat, who was transferred here before. Moat's brows are already twisted into a line. He was punished, but his position as general is temporarily retained, because he must rescue thousands of workers in the Yale mine. However, in this fight with the monster apes, many of his men were killed, and he could not drive these monster apes away. The number of monster apes is always increasing. From the initial siege of the mine valley, it has evolved into a mountainous area. General Moat has to dispatch at least 5 or 6 times the military force to completely clear these monster apes. However, General Moat himself knows that the more troops he sends, the more monster apes there will be. The most feared thing for the Nazca god is the number. The equally unlucky female staff officer was also full of confusion and said, what can we do? The mages in the mine cave can no longer hold on. Once the protective barrier is broken, they will all be buried in the mine cave, and those strange apes will definitely trample the mine cave until it collapses. She was not the one who most strongly drove Tang Mao and others away, but she did not stop them. Moreover, the most important thing was that the higher-ups did not give them the slightest chance to explain anything. General Mont's face was as hen. The number of strange apes was always greater than his army. If he forced his way in, he would send the lives of his soldiers inside. He could not do such a thing. Just when he and the female staff officer were in a dilemma, a soldier said, General, a helicopter is landing without authorization. It belongs to our Oil Felite castle. Just when General Mott was about to ask a question, he suddenly heard a loud noise on the helicopter pad on the top of the mountain. The noise, like an explosion, made General Mott rush over in a hurry. When General Mott saw a helicopter with a half-broken lower body, and Tang Mao and the other 2 people who jumped out of the helicopter, as well as the escort personnel of the castle, his face became even darker. But this time he didn't lose his temper or anything, because it was his selfishness that caused the country to become what it is now. He really couldn't imagine what consequences would be caused by losing his temper casually. Especially the girl among the 2. Mott knew that the other party's origin was absolutely terrifying. Mott suppressed his anger and asked indifferently, what are you doing here? There is only one thing to come here, that is to see you laugh. Tang Mao crossed his arms and had no good feelings for this Mott. Mott heard the words, and the momentum on his body instantly flowed. He wanted to endure it, but this was simply a bit too much. At this moment, the person who came with Tang Mao hurriedly stepped forward to explain the purpose of Tang Mao and others coming here. After learning the cause and effect, the female staff officer did not care to blame Tang Mao for his bad tone just now, but asked, "Do you really have a way to resist the god of Nazca?" Tang Mao said very confidently, "How do you think we solved a tribal demon?" He actually thought of one thing on the way here. That is, the demons of Nazca are not really numerous. In fact, as long as some with special marks are solved, a large area will be solved instantly. Unfortunately, it was a little late to think of it. Otherwise, in that castle, I would not have to waste the liquid of time. This country does have a lot of precious things, but unfortunately, they have not been passed down, and their brilliant civilization has gradually declined and disappeared. Then Tang Mao said, "You just stay here, but you need to attack them at night. You don't need to fight to the death. Just attract them. I will kill them in, and you prepare a plane." "What did you say? We attract them, and you kill them in?" Mott said in disbelief. Even if they attract a group of demons, there will still be many guarding there. He really couldn't believe that Tang Mao and the other two could do it alone. Moreover, once they attracted the attention of the endless demons, his subordinates would be finished. Tang Mao seemed to see what he was thinking, and then said, "Don't worry, they won't leave this vein. As long as you evacuate this area after the provocation, you will be safe. Are you sure? This is the only chance to save the people of your country. Can you believe it? If you don't faint, I will leave immediately. Of course, I can also make a bet with you." Tang Mao's eyes turned, and he said suddenly. Mort asked in confusion, "What's the bet?" Tang Mao continued, "After we solve this, half of the shares of the Yale mine will belong to me. If your people are solved, I can provide mercenaries, and continue to provide you with free protection." General Mort sneered and said, "Are you sure you have the strength?" Tang Mao took Jiang Xiaoxu into his arms and said, "My woman can make you roll over here immediately. Don't you think we can't hire an army?" Mort was very upset. He had seen the power behind Jiang Xiaoxu. Although he was not sure, it was probably true. And the Yale mine was indeed controlled by General Mort. Even if he was shelved, he had the final say on the mine. It must be said that they are very important to the mine, more important than the workers and technical workers. Without their protection, the mine will be in big trouble. Mott naturally does not want his gold mine to close down. Another important point is that the free protection will expire soon. Now the other party promises to continue to provide free protection. This is a huge expense. The salary of military mages is extremely expensive. General, this deal is good. With those two young mages, it is impossible to break through the siege of the monster apes. But after the Nazca incident is over, our mine needs more manpower to protect it. I checked. There is a lot of power behind this lady. The female staff officer said at the end. Her voice was particularly low. General Mott also made a calculation. Now that he has lost his position, his last resort is this mine. Without the military background, it is difficult for him to maintain the safety of the mine. Since the person in front of him is willing to provide free protection for the next few years, why not? After thinking about it, Mort said, "Okay, you can. You solve this matter, and half of the shares belong to you." Jiang Xiaoxu wanted to stop it. After all, if she lost this matter, she didn't think her father would care about Tang Mao. After all, the price was too high. However, Tang Mao gave her a look to stop her. After the agreement, he took Jiang Xiaoxu away. After arriving at a residence, Jiang Xiaoxu instantly lost her charming smile and said nervously, "Tang Mao, are you kidding? You are not really going to take me to die, are you? Also, are you so sure that Zhao Yanji can't evolve again in a short time? Zhao Yanji is indeed very strong when she is big." However, Tang Mao himself said that it was because he got some special liquid that made Zhao Yanji so powerful. But Zhao Yanji can't always change. Moreover, no matter how good something is, it can't be used all the time. In other words, if they want to kill him, they will have to face a tribe of demons. Although there were not as many as a tribe, there were still tens of thousands of them. She had no confidence at all. Then he said, "Even if you don't confess to me, don't think of dragging me to die." Pa. Looking at the chattering Jiang Shaoxu, Tang Mao slapped him, and it was quiet in an instant. Jiang Shaoxu's fox eyes were filled with mist, and he looked at Tang Mao aggrievedly, as if he would cry for you if you didn't give me an explanation. Tang Mao shrugged and said, "Don't worry, you will understand it at night. Just have a good rest now." She didn't understand any of the problems, but if Tang Mao didn't say it, she had no choice. Night fell. On the front, the Yale mine was like a black gust of wind, blowing up countless white-headed monster apes. These monster apes had red eyes like stars, and they stared at the humans who dared to break in here in a rage. There was a large area in the valley, a large area on the mountainside, and a large area on the top of the mountain. Seeing this scene, Mort was very upset. But he had chosen to trust Tang Mao, so he naturally would not evacuate now. A military commander asked with a tingling scalp, "Are you sure it's a feint? Are you sure they won't chase us out?" On the mountain roads on both sides, a large number of white-headed monster apes jumped out. They rushed down the mountain like rolling stones. The smoke and dust made people feel goosebumps all over. But Mort couldn't care about much at this time, because he and Tang Mao had agreed that they must attract a large number of monsters, otherwise the previous bet would be invalid, but the mineral vein would have to be given to him half. At the same time, the mountain road on the other side went along the mountainside, with some valleys, winding to the mineral vein basin between the two mountains. The hills on both sides of the mountain road were already infested with monkeys, and it felt like even the mountains were overwhelmed. Jiang Shaoxu hugged Tang Mao tightly with some fear, looking around, looking at those majestic monster apes with bodies like black rocks, looking at their ferocious eyes, and his calves began to tremble. Even though a large number of white-headed monster apes were attracted to the front, the number of white-headed monster apes in the back mountain did not seem to decrease much. Tang Mao was not afraid at all. Not only did he not flee, but he also rushed in with Jiang Shaoxu. Jiang Shaoxu cried out and took out all the defensive magic tools, while Tang Mao locked his eyes on the white-headed monster ape that seemed particularly timid among the large group. With the telekinesis, he took the golden-tailed monster ape from the 100 monster apes, and then a thunderbolt split it into pieces. Just as the golden tail hair fell down, just as it fell to the ground, the large group of wild beasts running wildly turned into wisps of smoke and dust, and all dissipated in the blink of an eye. A poke of golden tail hair fell down. Just as it fell to the ground, the large group of wild beasts running wildly turned into wisps of smoke and dust, and all dissipated in the blink of an eye. Jiang Shaoxu, who was exclaiming, was shocked after seeing this scene. Chapter 275, The Weakness of the Nazca Demon. This, Jiang Shaoxu, who was holding Tang Mao tightly, and holding the defensive magic tool, was completely dumbfounded. After Tang Mao saw that it was effective, he embraced Jiang Shaoxu and rushed inside. Shadow magic, space magic, and ice magic were used one after another. The so-called Nazca death god was just so-so. After Jiang Shaoxu killed his way in, he also found something wrong. He asked, "If we can only solve these monsters with different tail colors, will they all disappear?" Not bad. Quite smart. You cut them out so quickly. Tang Mao praised. After solving another piece, Jiang Shaoxu's eyes lit up, and then he said, "How did you know?" Tang Mao lied. "Little Yanji told me when she solved a large group of strange birds." Then he said, "You can also help me keep an eye out. Those with golden tails are symbolic creatures. If you solve them, the phantom monster apes derived from them will also disappear." Okay. After understanding, Jiang Shaoxu was no longer panicked. The arrogant little fox was resurrected again. With Jiang Shaoxu's cooperation, the road ahead was soon wide open, and Tang Mao led Jiang Shaoxu to the downhill slope. Looking down from the top of the downhill slope, the entire mineral basin can be seen. The mineral basin is full of white-headed monster apes. They are like holding a gathering here. The entrances of several large mines are blocked. The cry of the white-headed monster apes is like thunder, shaking the mine. But before, this number of demons was terrifying. But now, Jiang Shaoxu feels that it is really nothing. Nazca Death God. Of course, they still need to be faster. After all, once all the Nazca demons come back, it will be difficult to deal with. Even if they know their weaknesses, how can they easily find the special existence of the other party with tens of thousands of demons? Therefore, Jiang Shaoxu found the guidance, and Tang Mao killed them. In a moment, most of them were solved. The mine supervisor was near the cave in trance, and asked in shock, "What's going on outside?" A mine mage said in disbelief, "Two people are approaching us." Two people? Are you kidding me?" Another mine mage replied, "It's indeed two people." Several mine mages stood at the edge of the barrier, and they could barely see a corner outside through the barrier. In that corner, two extremely young mages were rushing here, and it seemed that one was taking action and the other was just playing, but they saw that hundreds of strange apes were wiped out by the other party with just a wave of his hand, as easy as brushing away dust. This scene made the mages in the mine cave a little unbelievable. Could it be that the king of magic came to save them? They were just some mid-level mages. Although they knew the existence of high-level mages and super-level mages, they were not sure about the higher ones. Across a large group of monster apes, they shouted at the entrance of the mine cave barrier, "Open the door, let us in." How dare the mine vein mages open the barrier? Even if Tang Mao showed that he was very powerful, once the barrier was opened, the monster apes in front of them would not be able to dismember them. There was no way. Tang Mao could not care about saving magic energy, and a high-level space magic rushed over. Just found two monster apes with special tails, and then directly killed them. The moment they were solved, a large group of monster apes disappeared instantly. He couldn't drag it on, because once the monster ape army came back, it would be too late. The mine vein mages were shocked when they saw this scene. Tang Mao stood in front of the barrier and said angrily, "Why don't you open the door?" The mine vein mages came to their senses and hurriedly opened the barrier to let Tang Mao and Jiang Shaoxu in. At this time, not to mention the mine mages here who looked at Tang Mao with admiration, even Jiang Shaoxu looked at Tang Mao with great satisfaction. Such a husband is simply too perfect. The supervisor here looked at Tang Mao and asked, "Are the two great masters of magic coming to save us? Our barrier can't hold on for much longer." Even if Jiang Shaoxu didn't show any strength at this time, he had to be a good dog and lick as much as he could. The other mine mages also had tears in their eyes. They really thought that their lives were over, and they would be torn apart by these irritable monster apes. Tang Mao took out a portrait and then said, "Go find this person. As long as you find him, your crisis will be resolved. Find him." Without waiting for the supervisor to speak, Tang Mao said coldly, "Do as I say, otherwise you will all die." After seeing the horror of Tang Mao's magic of destruction, he dared not say anything, and hurriedly followed Tang Mao's instructions, not daring to be negligent, and hurriedly dispatched several mine mages to find the man. Although there are more than 3,000 miners in the cave, it is not too difficult to find them, as long as you know their names. The miner named Shelton was soon brought to Tang Mao and Jiang Shaoxu by the mine mages. Jiang Shaoxu also recognized him immediately. He said with certainty, "It's him." Shelton pretended to be innocent at first. When he realized that his behavior was discovered, he immediately turned away the two mages next to him and fled to the depths of the mine like crazy. The moment he fled, Tang Mao directly controlled him with a shadow nail. Shelton shouted, "What are you doing? Why are you trapping me like this?" Tang Mao said coldly, "Hand over the things you stole, or I will throw you out now." Shelton was not stupid. He knew that if he took out the things, he would die more miserably, so no matter what, he could not hand them over. He looked like he would never admit it. He knew that he would not die if he did not hand over the things. However, Tang Mao directly asked the supervisor to order to find him, and Shelton was dumbfounded. This person has no martial ethics. Although he hid in a good place, with so many people searching, it would only take a few minutes. Not long after, a miner found the Nazca gem in a hollow rock. When Sheldon saw that his hidden treasure was found out like this, his face changed color. After Tang Mao got the gem, he said in a calm voice, "Hold on a little longer, the crisis will be resolved soon." After that, Tang Mao came to the outside of the barrier and kicked Sheldon out with one foot. Then, regardless of the miner's requests for help, he rushed out with Jiang Shaoxu. Sheldon was still a good firepower attractor. When the strange apes were dismembering him, Tang Mao had already taken Jiang Shaoxu and ran wildly using space magic. When they rushed out, they got on the plane directly and rushed to Nazca. When he personally sent the Nazca bird eye back there, after putting down the gem, he knew that everything was over. And Mort was completely dumbfounded. The disaster was lifted, and the miners of the Yale mine were rescued. The moment they saw the light of day again, they couldn't help but cheer. However, General Te's face was particularly ugly, but even if he wanted to breach the contract, he couldn't do it with Jiang Shaoxu, the little shrew, around. Tang Mao reaped a lot of rewards. Of course, he would not collect the income himself. After returning, he gave 7 to Ai Jiangtu, and kept 3 for himself. There was no way. Others had real power, and could control the army, but he was different. He was a bachelor and had nothing. If there was no guard, even if the mines here were valuable, he couldn't put them in his pocket. People still have to look further ahead, and Ai Jiangtu had no objection to this. However, he was still somewhat impressed by his solution to this problem. In addition, Osto was also very trustworthy, and exchanged all the resources for what Tang Mao needed, and gave them to him. He also gave her the magic weapon promised to Jiang Shaoxu. This time, the two of them reaped a lot. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.